All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for being here bright and early on a beautiful Thursday morning. My name's Jennifer Alvarez. I'm the interim city manager, and we're here today to do what we haven't done in about 2 years, to have a commission goal-setting session, so thank you for being here. We wanted to first just go around the room and make sure everybody introduces themselves, so that our facilitator knows who we are, and so that the audio recording can capture everybody that's here today. So if we could, Sammy, I think you can do the honors over on the far side.
Good morning, Sam Walthour, Neighborhood and Community Services Department.
Good morning, Jay Stacy, IT Director.
Good morning, Hassan Hashmiri, Utilities Director.
Good morning, Janet Meeks, Education Coordinator. Good morning, Sarah Maxfield, Economic Development Director.
Julia Davidian, Consulting and Internal Audit.
Dwayne DeAndre, Human Resources Director.
Sorry. Anthea Geniotis, Development Services.
Ryan Boylston, and Thea's microphone assistant.
Adam Frankel, I finally got my own microphone.
Julie Casal.
Shirley Johnson. Hello, testing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Shirley Johnson, City Commissioner.
Lynn Jellin, City Attorney.
Again, Jennifer Alvarez, interim city manager.
Good morning, I'm Elise Treisman. I'm the Acting Purchasing Director.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Laura Simon with the Downtown Development Authority.
Missy Barletto, Public Works Director.
Sam Metop, Parks and Recreation Director.
Kateri Johnson, city clerk.
Keith Tommy, Fire Chief. John Legge, Finance Director.
Good morning, Dr. Joe Saviak. I will be helping to facilitate today's workshop.
Thank you. I think we also have some staff members, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves in the audience.
Ken Edwards, Sustainability Officer.
All at once.
Denise Clackley, Assistant Director, Neighborhood and Community Services Department.
I can't see you in the corner, but if there's any other staff members that like to introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning. Cynthia Quisana, I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works.
Good morning, Doug Best, Assistant HR Director.
Don Maurice, Assistant IT Director.
Gina Carter, Public Information Officer.
Okay, wonderful, and welcome. So the session is open to the public. It's a public meeting and advertised as such. And we will be recording this and putting it up on the website as usual with all of our commission meetings. And with that, I think I'll be handing it over to Dr. Saviak, our facilitator for the day, for some more remarks.
Good morning. We wanted to open up if each of our elected officials could briefly state their objectives for today's workshop. I know we all talked about that in our conversations, and we thought that'd be a great way to start us off this morning. And then Ms. Alvarez will have a couple of opening remarks, and we'll move right into business and work.
Kick it off. So I think we're really lucky to be in a city like Delray Beach with so many good things going for us. From our team at City Hall, which thank you for everyone being here today, to our financial situation, to our community, and of course to the private investment that's coming into our city. With that said, there are several opportunities that I hope to identify today, prioritize, all get on the same page, and put a game plan for action together to address those opportunities.
Good morning again, everyone. I guess my objective for the next couple days is to know how myself as a city commissioner and my colleagues as the city commission, what we can do to help you. The last couple meetings, I've made it clear that I wanted to hear what you guys need, whether it be staffing, whether it be better technology. I think while we're the figureheads, it's very clear we are part-time employees and you guys are running the ship. And that's my goal for the next couple of days. What I can do to help you all out, and look forward to it.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Frankel made a great point, because we should be considering what the staff's needs are. And they're great, and we know that. We have a lot of needs throughout the city. Some of the objectives that you and I had discussed that I think we all agree water is an issue. This golf course needs some attention as well. And I think generally, you know, the public facilities, the places that people who visit see, maybe need a facelift. And I specifically think of this facility, the tennis center, and, you know, some of the parks. Thank you.
I am so excited to be here this morning. First of all, I missed the 2019 goal setting, and of course, we didn't have one in 2020. So this is 2 years of pent-up screaming on my behalf. Delray is a beautiful place. Everybody wants to be here. We have so many needs on our list. Unfortunately, I guess I can say it because it was on local news. Channel 5 said, oh, Delray had a pipe, water, whatever. And I'm saying, okay, one more time. Our infrastructure is top of my list. So many things. But this is an opportunity once a year when the commissioners get to sit with all of the with the city manager, I see him in this case, and her staff, directors, and whoever else manages to be able to come. And it's an opportunity for us to share. And I wish that everyone would be as open as they possibly can. If you want to push your item, I'm ready to push your item. I've got my own, so I hope you'll join me. Thank you so much.
No, it's just good to see everybody in the same room. Hopefully, this will be a very productive 2 days for us. And good morning.
Okay, so with that, I'm just going to give a few remarks, and then we're just going to get right into the work for the day. In line with what our commission has just shared, I think that what we really want to accomplish today is understanding what our game plan is going to be for the next 1.5 to 2 years, and prioritize those items. And if I would be a broken record probably the next 2 days, you'll hear what we did back in 2019 goal setting is, okay, this is our plan. This is what staff is going to be leading the charge with. And if things were to come up that is a little outside of this plan, we might have to sit with the commission and regroup and say, okay, if we want to prioritize something new, we can do that. But we're going to have to understand that something drops off of those lists the more we add to those lists. So that's kind of part of what we deal with every day as staff, is knowing that we have certain items that we're working on as priorities, but when those new items come in, how do we fit that into our work plan, right? Because we are not necessarily the biggest city, and we're not resourced as if we were a large organization. So we have to figure out how to match those operations and those priorities to make them work. So that's probably what we all really want to make sure we accomplish today. I also encourage staff, as you know, to be as open as possible to bring the realities, those operational realities, to the table when we start discussing items, because sometimes it's really up to us to educate not just the public but the elected officials when something comes up that we think that we need to bring some operational realities to the table when it comes to how we're able to accomplish certain things. So I want our staff to be as open as possible. I want everybody here to be as open-minded as possible, and also just come from a very collaborative approach, because, you know, there's nothing we can't do if we don't try to work together and figure out how we can best accomplish the goals of the city. So with all of that being said, Dr. Saviak now will be going through a presentation talking a little bit about what goal setting is all about and what strategic planning is all about, and then we're going to get basically right into some of the outcomes that came from the interviews and the surveys that were done a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alvarez. And also allow me to express my appreciation to all of you for your support, assistance, enthusiasm during this process and your commitment to ensuring that we have a successful workshop over these 2 days and then a successful strategic plan going forward. I'm well aware that this is regularly done as a city, which is the best practice, and you should be doing it. I commend you. And so therefore, I know that plenty of individuals here, because of your experience and background and involvement, will be pretty familiar with the things that I'm going to briefly cover in this kind of intro or overview to goal setting, strategic planning. So, but I know that there are citizens tuning in and following this, and I think it's important to kind of set the stage for them and give them a good overview of here's why we gathered, here's what we're doing today, here's what this type of process can achieve for you as citizens and a city. So we all know if we fail to plan, we will plan to fail, right? And successful organizations need a well-researched, well-designed, effectively implemented, rigorously evaluated plan to achieve their objectives. What it helps us do is it helps us best seize upon the opportunities of the moment and the future, as well as reduce risks and manage potential challenges too. It helps us achieve alignment. In other words, organize our operations around a specific set of objectives that we're trying to achieve. It allows us to build on progress. And as I said, we're not approaching this as like, you know, a brand new, the city's never engaged in goal setting, strategic planning before, because you have. It's much more a work in progress here for the city of Delray Beach. So the benefits of this type of process is clarity, right? It can help us achieve greater clarity on our mission, goals, and objectives, both short-term and long-term objectives. It helps us unify the organization around those objectives. It helps us organize our operations and performance so that those objectives are first and foremost. I always tell organizations when I come in and do an organizational assessment that if that's really their set of objectives, you should be able to see them, hear them, experience them. See them. Can everybody hear me without the mic or no? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, they're going to need that. They're going to need you speaking into the microphone for the recording.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry about that.
So, you know, it can help generate enthusiasm in the organization too, because, you know, public service-minded individuals who are attracted to working in local government, they want to make a positive difference. And when they have clear, consistent objectives and a good, solid plan to do it, that gets the best out of the team. It helps us be proactive instead of reactive, and understanding our environment, our challenges, things that are changing in the environment, anticipatory government, being best prepared for the future, and leading change, which is going to be the normal of the 21st century. So what are the steps in the process? You know, the first stage is research. Research helps define mission, goals, objectives. Then we select strategies for each objective, specific tactics to implement that strategy. Then we implement and we evaluate. And so the key 7 steps to this process are: 1, you know, first getting that assessment that we all participated in. Hey, what are our strengths, our challenges, opportunities, our threats? What do our stakeholders value? What do they want? You know, the citizens, the individuals within the organization who are implementing these working to achieve these objectives. A good sense of our history, right? Good sense of our organization. Capacity is important. In other words, as we all know, when we set specific objectives for an organization, we need to go, do I have everything I need to achieve those, right? The people, the programs, the systems, the technology, the facilities, the resources. You know, then we formulate strategy and plan and implement, evaluate. So we're moving, as we start with research and we move through this process, it gets more detailed and specific at each stage in the process. You know, from the broadest possible goals to objectives, which are smart, you know, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time-bound. They'll have a number or percentage in them. They'll have a timeline. That's good for management. It's good for accountability. And then detailed action plans that the team will put together on each objective. And then means of knowing, hey, when am I getting the ball in the end zone, right? What does success look like? Both process and outcome evaluation. Yeah, so the challenges that local governments around the country, actually around the world, can face is if they develop a really good plan, but then they don't effectively implement it, right? That's not going to produce the progress that we want. And gaining a good, solid understanding of what goal setting and strategic planning is all about, so that it actually drives the organization to all the success that it envisions. And I've seen this process, I'm sure all of you have too during your careers, have a very positive impact for communities and really optimize the performance and effectiveness and efficiency of the organization. So we're organizing around outcomes, and there's a wonderful video I'll send you, Blanchard, where there's a new director of the DMV, and he reorganizes the whole DMV around who? The customer, right? And all of the operations, the culture, the policies, the schedule, everything is about the customer. And the reason I bring that up as a good example is, once again, alignment. This process aids in alignment, because if we have objectives over here, but our operations over here, and the two are not closely connected, objectives are not driving operations, we all know we will not achieve the success that we hope to achieve. This process looks at, well, what's the best fit between our organization at this point in time and the community we serve? It also enables us to be proactive and lead change. I don't think I need to tell anyone here that the last 18 months are a good preview of life in the 21st century. It's going to be pretty dynamic, transformational. It's not going to be stable, predictable, normal, traditional. I have a fixed set of rules that tell me what tomorrow is going to look like. Tomorrow could be quite different from today, right? So what's key to this process is starting it off with research and having a good understanding of the organization, the community, what your leadership identifies as the objectives, what the team is sharing in terms of objectives. And I always tell people, you know, when it's research drives objectives, objectives select strategy, strategy is implemented through tactics, and we implement and evaluate. And you know, strategy and tactics are two different things. It'd be like if a company is advertising a certain product, and so he says, well, our strategy is we're just going to buy a lot of billboards. Well, we know billboards are a tactic. The strategy would be what? Increasing brand awareness, creating a positive image with our target audience of customers. So yeah, strategy is how we're going to win, right? And we need a successful strategy for each of our objectives. And we'll have a detailed action plan for each of those objectives. And we need, and my point about unifying the organization is there a difference between 100 people playing instruments and an orchestra performing a symphony? Right, and by the way, this is interactive today. It'll be a lot of, like, I talk, you talk, which is probably a relief, because people are like, is he gonna talk all day, you know? So, and I love, who is the smartest person in the room? The room. The room. In other words, all of you have tremendous experience and expertise and knowledge, and we need to tap into all of that and utilize it to get us the best set of objectives and the best plan to achieve them. Yeah, I'd also say too, it's kind of like presenting a business plan at the bank. A winning plan attracts resources. And I always tell local governments, there are, as all of you know, tremendous opportunities right now to leverage federal and state dollars, private dollars, for different types of infrastructure or programs. And so, you know, when you're able to come forward and go, here's our objectives, here's our we have evidence-based plans that will produce success on these objectives. You know, your ability to attract investment in grants and financial support for those is increased. So, and that's a good thing. You know, local governments can look at goal setting and say, well, you know, federal and state law and local ordinances, that sets it for us, and that's it. Of course, we know there are some things that are mandatory, but there's things that you have freedom and flexibility to innovate and add and enhance. And the roles of local government in America, I think all of you would agree, have pretty dramatically changed in recent decades. And so there's a chance really, based on needs assessment of the community and trying to be proactive and anticipatory and solving problems and meeting needs and addressing challenges, where all of you get to be public sector entrepreneurs, right? And initiate and lead change. And one of the key questions is, you know, well, what do our citizens value? What do they seek? What do they want, right? And what are they willing to support? You know, once again, just re-emphasizing the point is, once you have that specific set of objectives and plans, it really does help unify and integrate and focus the organization on their achievement, and that's a good thing. Teams do a lot better with shared objectives, right, and a strong shared sense of mission. You know, how does strategic planning vary from normal daily operational supervisory type issues? I mean, you know, these are the type of issues and priorities that are need the involvement of your senior leadership, your top leadership, both elected and administrative. They typically, not always, but could very well involve a large amount of organizational resources. So that's another reason why that issue is a good candidate for goal setting and strategic planning as opposed to daily, normal, supervisory, operational type activities. It's likely to have a significant and long-term impact on the community and the organization. And once again, we're really trying to get that best fit between who we are, what we can do, what the community needs and expects, what the available resources are, and put all that together into a winning game plan to create our future and lead change. And so strategic planning, once again, I referenced this earlier, you know, having a great strategic plan is having a great strategic plan. But you're going to need great strategic management to actually see successful implementation of that plan and that the stated objectives are actually realized as translated into positive outcomes. Once again, capacity is key. We need to select objectives that are doable, right? And there are times where local government kind of undershoots and they could have been capable of more. And there are times maybe where local government in America can overshoot and tries to do something that's maybe beyond, it's a good idea, but it's just beyond the capacity to effectively execute. So we really want to match those objectives with capacity. Now, don't get me wrong, you may very well add capacity in order to achieve the objectives, right? Resources and partners. But that's a very important part to this process as we align ends and means. So, I mean, it's like anything we do in public management. There are strengths and there are limitations, right? No one does anything in the world of public policy, public management, where they go, yeah, what we're doing is perfect. Everyone's going to love it. It's going to go extremely well, and it's free. I mean, you know, leadership is making choices every day, right? And today you are making choices, right? So, I mean, there could be somebody who says, hey, I wanted this too, right? Doesn't mean the city won't eventually be able to get to it. because this is a, you know, an ongoing enterprise. It's not like, now, train's leaving the station. This is the only objectives. We'll never do objectives for the next century. I mean, of course, but that's always a potential limitation when you set goals. And then, of course, I always tell people, you know, and all of you are very familiar as policymakers and executives, there's kind of like a checklist of, this is why we can't have nice things. And, or I call it the list of usual suspects, right? Like, and I could call you at 3 in the morning and you could recite these out of your sleep, you know what I mean? Like, hey, the leadership's not really committed to it. Oh, we picked the wrong mission, goals, and objectives. Like one time I was looking at a city and they're a retirement community with absolutely no commercial base there or infrastructure and everything, and their aspiration was to become Silicon Valley. And I said, I'm not sure that that's your best short-term vision, right? You know, we need to be realistic and evidence-based. I'm not saying don't be aspirational, be aspirational, but also be realistic. If there's not accountability or follow-through on the objectives, you know, they're not likely to be realized. If we don't have solid action plans that are well-designed, effectively implemented, it won't happen. And then just the typical barriers to innovation in the public sector that you can see, you know, historically when you look at different examples of different levels of government, you know, hey, the culture was not right for that innovation. They didn't change their policies, procedures, technology, budgeting, facilities to achieve that. In other words, they left barriers in place. A key way of thinking about leading change is identify barriers and remove them. You know, that's a really good way to think about it, right? And so that's my whole point about there's nothing new that can stop successful goal setting and objective implementation and strategic planning, except kind of the usual stuff that, you know, we deal with every day in public administration. Yeah, so once again, you know, broadly stated, right, mission is what's the rationale of the organization? Goals are long-term, broadly stated purposes. Now I'm down to objectives, which are specific, smart, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. The school district will reduce the dropout rate by 10% in 36 months, right? That would be like an example of a, you know, specific measurable objective, right? And then evaluation, accountability, right? Once again, everything that we do in public management, and we want it to be best practices, model programs, evidence-based, but you know, everything that we do has both strengths and limitations, right?
Dr. Saviak,
Ms.
I'd like to
Alvarez.
ask on the slides, when we have the O1s, S1s, T1, T3, and then you have the E1,
Yeah.
could you walk the group through what
I
each of those would
absolutely
represent?
will. And I know somebody pulled me aside earlier and they said, I can't believe this. I specifically came today because there was not going to be any math.
That's why I'm here.
I love math. Sorry to make the joke. There's a mathematician here. Then Dr. Saviak made jokes about it. Okay, so the way I approach it is I go, what's that objective, right? And once again, if there's not a percentage or a number in it, it's not an objective. If there's not a timeline to it, it's not an objective. In other words, we're going to make sure that our county is really cool. Okay, is that an objective? Can anybody manage that to success? Can you hold anyone accountable to that in your business every day? Right, so you're really operationalizing goals with objectives, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time-bound. So first, the objective. What's a strategy? The strategy is how we will win, right? So if you don't mind, I can give examples throughout the day from different arenas of public policy. I'll give one from the Chief's world in criminal justice. You might go, well, our objective is to lower the crime rate, right? And so the strategy would be, wow, my research shows that a very small percentage of violent career offenders generate a majority of my crime. So I should then target my investigative and enforcement resources on those offenders and not allow them the opportunity to offend, right? So I've chosen an objective I can measure. I've chosen a strategy that we know from all available policy research worldwide will work, right? And then you'd have specific tactics to it. Hey, I would have a specific group of investigators who focus on these type of offenses and offenders, and I would have certain technology and crime fighting strategies and crime prevention strategies with citizens, or tactics, I'm sorry. So, the objective is, I'm gonna increase or decrease this by this percentage or number within this time period. The strategy is, I've done the research, and this is a well-proven, strongly empirically validated approach to getting that outcome, right? But it's not detailed operational. The tactics flow from the strategy, and so like my criminal justice example is, hey, I have a specific investigative unit for that. Hey, we're working with federal prosecutors on lengthier sentences for career criminals to remove them from the community for continuing to commit violence. And so objective, then strategies, then tactics, then we implement, then we evaluate. And I want to talk about evaluate in a moment. Does that bring a little more? There's no question. And there's two types of evaluation. And I'll preview this, billboard it here now, is there's process evaluation, meaning the program is ongoing while I'm implementing it. What am I doing during process evaluation? I'm typically utilizing qualitative tools, observation, interviews of citizens receiving the service, interviews of staff, and I'm trying to make sure that the program I'm implementing matches the planned program. In other words, to avoid program drift, where the program ends up being something completely different than what we had designed to implement, right? And that can happen in government. And it can even happen for good intentioned reasons, but it's not a good way to go. So it's monitoring, measuring, managing to ensure that the planned program and the delivered program are one and the same. Outcome evaluation is quantitative. There we're looking at what? Well, did we achieve greater effectiveness, efficiency, or equity? Whichever one of those was the goal, right? If it's an effectiveness goal, did we reduce that dropout rate? If it was an efficiency goal, cost-benefit analysis or cost-effectiveness analysis, it would be, did we get the best return on investment, per graduate of that program? We got a higher graduation rate by those dollars invested. It's a much more efficient way to go. Or equity. Sometimes a very important issue in a community is equity. And we have neighborhoods and citizens who are underserved. And if we do a needs assessment, we find out, hey, they're not receiving the service level that we want for all citizens in our county to receive. Then equity is our focus. And then with equity, we're measuring the needs assessment with the service utilization to make sure the people who actually needed the service match those who are actually utilizing it. And we don't have any service gaps, right? So by doing the interviews and by doing the survey, we work through this, right? Like, what's our mission? What's our history? What are our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats? And we talked in these interviews and surveys, you shared, here are the needs expressed to us from the community. Here's what citizens are interested in. Here's what they'd like us to focus on. We got a good sense of the history during this research process. Where has the city been? Why? Where is it at now? Because I think a sense of history is very important, right? I live in a city that's 452 years old, but there are dozens of cities that I'm older than in this state of Florida, But every community has a specific history, and we need to understand that because it explains a lot as to why we are where we're at today and where we could go. Then we're looking at our capacity. In other words, what can we pull off, right? Like I said, if you aim too big, that's not going to be good policy or sound management, because you simply can't execute that vision, right? But by understanding current capacity, and if you need to add capacity, then you're able to match that to what you're trying to achieve. So really, this whole process comes down to this equation, right? Given our mission, our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, our threats, our history, our capacity, and resources, what should our objectives be? And then what strategies and tactics would best implement them, and how should we evaluate, right? So I just draw your attention to something I billboarded earlier, and that is, if we're not evaluating it, we shouldn't be doing it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I appreciate all of the strategic planning, et cetera, but in my short-term experience with the city so far, we plan, we strategize, and then life comes into the picture.
Sure.
I would say, since my first strategic planning goal setting in 2017, the list is the same, and I don't know that I would be able to say, well, we can cross that one off. It's a success. I'm sure you're going to address that. Am I jumping ahead of you?
Yes, Vice Mayor Johnson. I think this is a really good point, and that's why I kind of referenced earlier, we're not like starting with a brand new organization that says, hey, we've never done goal setting, we've never done strategic planning, we're not actively working on a specific set of objectives. You are. There's a history there. And there may also be some opportunities where you go, that was a great idea. I don't know if we took that far enough, if we actually got that done. And that's a wonderful opportunity this type of process offers to go, hey, where are we at on this? We talked about this 2 or 3 years ago, where are we at on this and what do we need to do to make it happen? Or have conditions change that we might want to alter that objective, So that absolutely is going to be addressed today.
Thank
The
you.
process and outcome evaluation, once again, process, make sure the program I'm doing, the service, the policy, the capital project is staying on track as planned. And then secondly, outcome, hey, did performance match promises? Were objectives translated into outcomes? So just a quick review, mission, goals, objectives, intended outcomes. We then align, we have detailed action plans for each objective. We align the organization around it, and we implement and we evaluate. Let me say too on the evaluation. Is there something wrong if a program underperforms or even fails a new initiative? Because we can be pretty risk averse in the public sector. Is that necessarily a defeat? How are we supposed to respond to it?
It's a learning opportunity.
Absolutely. That's it, right? If it was, I'm not talking about like crazy stuff that had no basis in reality. We should not have done that. But the reality is, in business, nonprofits, and the public sector, some things we try are going to not perform as great as we thought, or maybe even fail. We can't be fearful of innovation, and we have to have the right leadership and culture, mindset, and skill set that rewards and encourages innovation. So, why do I bring this up? The obvious. You could have an objective in this strategic plan that doesn't get achieved. But as long as you have learned the right lessons, right? That program was the design or the implementation, something went wrong, here's what it is. As long as we are replicating success and not replicating failure, as long as we're funding success and not funding failure, as long as we're a learning organization, we're good. But it is absurd to expect that every one of the objectives in the plan is going to go perfectly, right? It's just not realistic. Doesn't happen in business. It's not going to happen in government. Doesn't happen in any human activity. So we did, and I'll be reviewing this here in a moment. We did both the interviews and the electronic surveys. What did you see as the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? There was a good deal of consensus on these issues. You know, we discussed the history of the city and the organization. We got a good sense of, okay, well, what do the citizens value? What do they want? What do they need? We got in talking with your leadership team, got a good sense of capacity, right? You know, what can we effectively execute when? And today we're going to identify those objectives, and I broke them out into 3 categories. I don't promise that they're perfect, but they're just kind of a good way of thinking about things that local governments do. You know, the first category being capital projects, right? Infrastructure, facilities. The second category being programs and policies, services. And then the third being, you know, institutional capacity, city government itself, right? So I reviewed your reports and process from 18 and 19. And 18, what were the major themes? Infrastructure, development, transportation, and strengthening institutional capacity of city government, right? In terms of the kind of the major theme of the 2019, it was infrastructure capital projects. There was also a series of very specific policy programmatic type issues. So for 2021, what we did is we looked at all the reports, research, data, and metrics that matter when you're looking at a city government in America. All of you are familiar with all of those, so I won't go down that long list. Then we spent 2 days doing in-person interviews with you to ask, what's your SWOT analysis? What would you identify as major objectives for capital projects, for policies, programs, and then for city government itself? And then there was an electronic survey. And what's great about this process is it's getting more focused and clarity and actionable at each step, correct? Now that's not to say that you won't say during the workshop today, because you're the city's leadership, hey, that didn't get addressed in the survey, but I want it here. You know, and let's do that too. Absolutely. So there's plenty of opportunity for that. We're not locked into these, but it makes this workshop and process a lot more productive when you do that advanced work and preparation and research prior to the workshop and prior to developing, you know, any type of strategic plan. So what were the major findings? And we'll roll through these. And like I said, there was a good degree of consensus. They really were not like all over the planet. You know what I mean? Like, oh, there's 150 different views on what our strength is as a city, right? I mean, some diversity, as we would expect there to be in perspective, but a pretty good degree of consensus. So what did we see as the strengths? Some of them were stated earlier today in our as we started, right? You know, good economy here, fiscally sound, vibrant downtown. I loved driving into your downtown a few weeks ago. It was hopping. I mean, there are so many things this city has going for it that cities all over America would have like city envy for, you know? I mean, all these cities that are like struggling with, well, nobody goes to downtown. Well, nobody's gone downtown since the 1970s. If they saw your downtown, oh yeah, every restaurant, bar, event, active, yeah, it's all packed. People look like they're having the time of their lives, you know? Like, hey, this is the place to be, you know? So we have a diverse community, and we need to pay very close attention to that we're making sure all the benefits are realized by all citizens and all neighborhoods and communities. You've got a lot of really good recreational assets. We're in one, right? A good leadership team and good perception of public safety, you know. So a number of real positive strengths, real advantages and assets to leverage, right, for this process, to do even more and realize even more objectives. You know, the weaknesses, I mean, none of these will surprise anybody here, right? Hey, we're looking for a city manager. And a number of these themes, by the way, they're very common to local government in America. You know, it's funny, I talk to city, county governments, constitutional officers, and school districts, and there are going to be some that go, oh no, Dr. Saviak, we're terminally unique. We have a set of issues and problems that never happen in local government worldwide. And the reality is, a number of these challenges that were identified, hey, am I doing everything to recruit, hire, develop, mentor, build, invest in my workforce? Pretty common challenge today, right? Ensuring effective and continuous communication in a growing city. I mean, pretty common issue today, right? Having long-term vision and a long-term budget to match the vision. I think that's always a challenge for local government because the budget is what? It's an annual product, right? But trying to align long-term budgeting and process with long-term vision. You know, making sure we focus on the entire city. Like I said, a lot of cities and counties would say the same thing. A couple that were disagreed with, that's why I put the asterisks. You know, in other words, the options were, you know, strongly agree, somewhat agree, neither agree or disagree, somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree. Disagree that, hey, weaknesses, you know, we don't have sufficient teamwork, or that we don't engage the community. And it's wonderful to see members of the community out here today for this. And it's great that you all put this on your social media and you broadcast it and share it with citizens. You know, opportunities, sustainability, capital projects, the succession planning, workforce needs, workforce development for city government, making sure we're accessing all the financial funding sources that are available out there, keeping Delray, you know, continued economic development and sound local economy, right? Making sure that we're continually modernizing our information technology systems as a city. And then threats, right? Things that might impair our ability to attract and retain the high quality employees that we hire and we want to continue to hire, right? Infrastructure. I mean, there isn't a city in America, there isn't a county in America, there isn't a state in America that would say infrastructure, right? It's probably, nationally, the price tag, the American Society of Civil Engineers comes out with a report card every year and a price tag. And 10 years ago, it was almost $4 trillion in unfunded infrastructure deficits, right? In other words, we did major investments right after World War II, as everybody remembers, right, with Eisenhower and the interstate highway system and everything. The problem we all know is what? I have to continually invest in infrastructure. I can't go, oh yeah, we did that a century ago, so we're set, you know. Everybody is, I can assure you, nationwide, the price tag's a lot higher than $4 trillion now. Sea level rise, keeping closely connected with the community, the poverty that we also have in the community needs to also deserves our focus. Making sure that our taxes don't get too high to our residents and businesses. Unfunded mandates, right. I mean, if you asked any room of local officials in America, you know, what's one of the least favorite things that you do is what? Unfunded mandates, right? And so it's always interesting. If you meet with governors are quick to say, man, all these unfunded mandates coming down from Washington, D.C., state lawmakers, right? Right. And then the same state lawmakers in states around the country do what to localities? Send unfunded mandates. So I guess the rule is do unto others as you would not want done unto you. So it's a very common challenge for local government in America today, and keeping the city competitive within the region. So, and that's an interesting dynamic today. There was a time where local communities did not really compete against each other so much, but today you're seeing certain states around the country lose capital companies and residents, and certain states like Florida continue to be a magnet for companies, capital, residents, and visitors. So yeah, localities and states compete today. So the capital project, major findings, I don't think any of those are, you know, a shock or surprise to anyone here, because all of you discussed them. You're working on these. These are important, and we'll get more into them today and tomorrow. Policies and programs, what were the top priorities on policies and programs? I also handed this out to everybody too, so you have this on it. Everyone should have this on a sheet in front of them too, regardless of whether you have the PowerPoint or not. The capacity, you know, ensuring that we have strong capacity to effectively execute a city government, and what those priorities are. I threw this in because I thought it was useful. I mean, the numbers may not be always exactly some, like policymakers might have said it's a 3, you know, the leadership team might have said it's a 2 or a 4, but really, you can walk into some organizations and you can interview like their senior leadership, and then interview everybody else, executives, managers, and supervisors, and get 100 different answers. And how well does the company run when 100 people are in the boat rowing in 100 different directions at once at the same time, right, enthusiastically? Not very well. So the good news here is we have a good degree of consensus. In other words, the team knows what the policymakers' priorities are, and they're trying to execute on those, right? And that was true, you know, same thing to be true on the policies, program, services front. And a lot of shared themes, common priorities on ensuring that we have the sufficient capacity. Yes, Vice Mayor.
I'm a little surprised at this particular chart, because I would think that the policymakers and the executive team leadership would have been a little more closely aligned, especially, everybody knows my favorite, if the executive team and its staff, employees, are in a building and there's constant disruption, or we were saying we couldn't come back because COVID crowded us in a little bit too much. We all know that we've outgrown our spaces, be it the city hall or the police department or the fire departments. I would have thought it would have been a little higher, because on the policymakers, we perceive that's a number 1, but
Sure.
it's not.
Sure.
Interesting, that's all.
I think you're asking a really good question. I mean, that's successful leaders ask really good questions. And there is, you know, there's not a dramatic disparity like a 1 and a 10, but that's exactly what the workshop and the process is for, to bring that clarity, to synchronize policymakers and the leadership team, and ensure that everyone leaves from the process working together on a unified plan, and it's fully integrated, everyone. So we wouldn't be doing this process if that was already perfect. This process will definitely address that and ensure that we synchronize, so that everybody's going, yep, that's one of the top 3, that's one of the top 5, here's our plan for it, here's our project manager for it, here are the design and implementation issues we need to address. Absolutely. So what we'll do now, in order to facilitate decisions and discussion, decisions, analysis, consideration by our policymakers is move into each category, and the team has, prepared reports, not drilling too deep into detail. That's not especially meaningful here. But, what are kind of like the big ticket aspects of each of the capital projects, policies, or building institutional capacity? It also gives it's a great opportunity for there to be dialogue and achieve clarity and synchronize and make some decisions about prioritization. But I think it's advisable always to get like the latest status update, status report on a key issue before, going further on decision-making on that key issue or prioritization. So what we hope to achieve is prioritization on day one, and then action plans day two, right? So prioritization day one, operationalizing day two, the strategic plan. So with that, we can start capital projects. Did you want to take like a 5-minute break, or? I didn't realize what time I was at.
Would we like a break, or
no,
shall we?
You already said, hey, don't have to have the microphone. But, you've been very kind and very patient. I realize a lot of you are already very knowledgeable about strategic planning. But like I said, I thought it was important for the community to hear, well, why are they meeting today? What are the benefits? How will it best serve me? What are the purposes? And so why don't we take a few-minute break, and then when we come back, you'll be getting specific status reports on specific capital project priorities. And then we'll facilitate that discussion. Thank you.
I ate bacon today.
Yes, 5 minutes.
helpful, for all of us to see a current status report, and go, okay, where are we at on that project, where are we at on that issue, in order to best facilitate your analysis and decision-making on each of those as objectives. It'll give you a chance to ask questions. It also tees us up very nicely, sets us up for success tomorrow with identifying, okay, that was confirmed by our elected leadership as a capital project priority or policy priority. What do we need to do in terms of implementation issues, major implementation issues tomorrow? The other thing I would suggest, and it's completely your call, is we came away with like 8 to 10 in each category. And once again, I apologize for hitting this 3 or 4 times. Capacity has to match the specific set of objectives. So you may very well end up going, yeah, I think all 8 to 10 are important. I think these are the 3 to 5 that we need to move forward on now. I apologize. These are the 3 to 5 that we need to move forward on now, and let's make them the focus. But once again, that's your call. So what we're going to do now is for each of those identified priorities, and you have them in front of you, from the research process, capital projects, policies, and city government itself, is you're going to get a quick, efficient status report from each member of the team on the status of that project, program, or initiative within city government to once again facilitate decision-making, analysis, and then we'll move to, okay, well, what is the consensus of the board on making that a top priority? All right. So now grateful to be able to turn this over to each of our presenters on capital projects.
So to set everyone up, Hassan, you'll be first, and then Jay, and then it's the Missy show.
Okay.
Oh boy, we're in for a treat. I think the clicker,
comfortable.
Dr. Saviak, is in front of that TV there.
The clicker's in front of the TV, so
Oops.
there you go.
Only have to do one
Oh.
click.
It's good luck.
Is it the
By the
middle
way,
of the
did a
center?
very good job on these status reports and keeping them efficient and actionable for decision makers.
think so.
Hey, here are the big ticket issues on each of these. And once again, the research didn't always yield the most universally specific objective in it on one of these categories. So this is a time for the policymakers to add clarity to that and sharpen the focus. And so it may very well be, hey, we need the team to come back with analysis and recommendations on that. That's not something that, in other words, there's a wide range of actions that might flow from this type of status report. But we thought it was important for you to have in order to facilitate the decision making.
Good morning, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this wonderful team. And I do appreciate all my colleagues that they voted the water treatment plant to be the #1 in the list. I truly do. It's my passion.
I do have something to say. Yesterday was Hassan's 1-year anniversary with the city.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we made it a very special day for you.
I appreciate it. I met my first objective. My first goal was to make my 1 year here. But thank you. Water treatment plant is truly, to my view, as a public servant and in the utility business, the most important thing for the city at this time. As most of you are aware, the city of Delray Beach serves nearly 22,000 customers. Nearly 70,000 people live within the city limit. The water treatment plant that we currently have here was built back in late 50s and early 60s. At that time, that was the technology of the day. I'm pretty sure they picked the best technology at that time to treat the water. However, today we are dealing with the same water treatment facility. It has improved to some extent, but as we all know, the main concern of the city's residents are the water. So with respect to the time, I just want to let you know that the treatment plant facilities are, if not obsolete, but they're very old. The control, the SCADA system, the structure, the treatment technology is time to be looked into, be replaced. So what I have done, developed a schedule there for next 4.5 years, how we can implement the construction and hopefully completion of the new water treatment plant. The feasibility study was done a couple years ago. We are in process of revising that. As you have in front of you, we're hoping that the first step to do that is a rate study, which later on we're going to go through that, and the funding. Once we secure the funding and to see how we're going to fund that treatment facility, rest of it is basically engineering and construction. So I truly appreciate the support that I can get from the commissioners in order to push this project forward. With that said, hopefully next year this time, we'll be looking into the pre-design for the treatment facility. That would take also the design process about a year or so, and the construction maybe 2 years. So we are not that far from 4.5 years from now, and I truly want to see that happen before I truly retire. With that said, if there's any other question, I'll be more than happy to.
Excuse me.
I have a question.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
said I think you said we're out of date, but we're not out of antiquated or whatever.
Well,
the phrase you
the
used.
treatment facility,
What's
ma'am,
old?
the treatment facility is a lime softening. That's the technology that was used back in 1970s and 1980s to treat the water. Still, it does treat the water. We still meet all the regulations, all the secondary and primary and secondary drinking water standards. But our customer expectations, just like any other citizens in Florida, United States, is getting higher and higher. We want everybody wants iPhone 11. Nobody wants to have iPhone 2 or 3 anymore. So we have to. And City of Delray, I've been coming to the city for last 12 months, and I enjoy being in the city more every day because it's just a wonderful city. The people deserve to have, to me, the state-of-the-art water treatment facility.
And one more question, really shortly, if we could. I don't want to impose on anyone else's time. Would you not also agree that we are now facing a different challenge, as we just heard over the past weekend, of what's happening in West Palm Beach? Although our methodology is different, we don't use surface water, but we all know that things do tend to get into the drinking water, no matter from what source. We've got different chemical needs now that we didn't have before in trying to eliminate things, if possible, because of all of the progress of using plastic in our everyday lives. So that's going to also be something I hope will be addressed with the new water treatment plant.
Yes, ma'am. That's the whole goal. EPA, every 5 years, they review the contaminant. And you all have heard of the PFAS. Even though we don't have no issue with the PFAS, we are meeting the requirement. We are well below the health advisory level. But that's one of the things that our citizens are concerned. And hopefully the new treatment technology, it will reduce it drastically. But again, I just want to make sure that everybody knows the treatment plant that we have right now is produce the water that we can. I just wanted to thank Chief Tommy and Commissioner Bolston. They drink in the city water, and I don't know who else. I saw two of them. I really do, and I haven't touched my water, so please don't take a picture of me with the bottled water in front of me.
I'm surprised we have plastic bottles on the table.
And Duncan too, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, good morning. These are some IT initiatives that we're going to be requesting some dollars to help fund this coming fiscal year. The land management software to enable us to have online permitting and electronic plan review. This is actually quite a transformational project for the city, not only in how we interact with the public, giving them ability to do things online with the city and how they work with us, but because we're basically a paper-based system within development services, and Anthea, help me if I misrepresent your area in any way, but the processes are constrained in how we can do things and how efficient we can be. When we move into a fully electronic system, it opens the doors for us to implement best practices. So it's not just putting a facelift on the existing software that we have now. It's basically transforming how we work in development services and how we process things. So we have to take a look at how we're doing things now and revamp those things. And because it is transformational, we've got a long road ahead of us. To give you some idea of kind of the things that we have to implement before we can start to go live with something like this. In the demo we had with the vendor, near the end of it, he says, and the good news is we can connect directly to your geocoded master address database. We don't have a geocoded master address database. We're working on it. We're working on it right now. We're making some progress, and we're expecting to have that ready in September, just in time for the new fiscal year. So there are some things like that that we have to get in place before we can start implementing something like this, but we think the timing is right to be ready to start in early 2022. The next item is the Enterprise Resource Management System, ERP system. I believe there was an attempt, or I know there was an attempt a few years back to implement a fully integrated ERP system. It only got partially implemented, and we're going to be looking for additional funding to move that project forward. There are still a lot of manual processes that are done by HR and finance, and I think our utility billing system could use an overhaul. PC replacement plan and cybersecurity, they're kind of tied together. You won't see any specific items from us regarding cybersecurity. That is for a reason. We don't want to give away what our weaknesses are. We don't want to give away what it is we're doing to protect ourselves. But the PC replacement plan, this is an attempt to get us into a habit of replacing our equipment on a regular basis. The most common vector for the bad guys to get into our network is through a user responding to type of a phishing email and giving away the login and password. The second most common way is antiquated equipment. And up until very recently, we still had some Windows 2008 servers in our data center, and 2008 servers have long been discontinued by Microsoft and have not been getting the security updates. And that's exactly what the bad guys look for, is antiquated equipment. So it's not just having the latest and greatest equipment, which is always cool to have, but it's to ensure that we're always staying current with best practices in cybersecurity. We also are audited by Florida Department of Law Enforcement every 3 years, and to check our compliance with the criminal justice information systems compliance. We call it CJIS. And so you're all going to see a couple items from the police department to help us get into compliance with that. And again, we probably won't give too much details in the public available documents, but we'll be happy to give you some private conversations about what the vulnerabilities are and why we need this particular technology upgrades. And those are our top items. Go ahead.
Excuse me, thank you, Jay. May I just ask, do you have any estimate of the cost?
For which, yes.
For the software you said would take till early 2022.
The land management software.
Right.
The worst case scenario is about $1 million.
Okay.
We are currently negotiating with a vendor that we had a contract with a few years back. We expect to come in significantly under that number, but if negotiations don't go well, we might have to abandon that situation and then move to another vendor. So that's the worst case scenario for that.
And then the ERP, what about that?
The ERP is it's probably in the $2 million range, and that would probably be phased in over a few years.
If I could add for a moment about the land management software. I think it's important to understand that the departments in the workflow for building permits go beyond development services. We need engineering and public works. They check the drainage calculations and other things. Fire has a review stop for all new permits that come through, and we are physically passing rolls of paper, not just between reviewers, but between buildings. So the other thing I just want to raise in terms of it, you give me your permit and then we give it back to you, but it does go through the city, and this type of software is going to increase efficiencies because multiple people can review at the same time instead of being this linear progression. That said, I think one thing we need to think about is that we actually have to work with the consultant to program our process into their software. So the time to discuss whether our review process is the way we want it is now. Are we going to shift from 5 different site plan applications to a major, minor? How much administrative authority are we doing? We had started this.
Right.
And I think a lot of these larger efforts have struggled with the stop-start of the changes in leadership. Quite frankly,
I'm
we're
sorry.
going to have a conversation, let's have it.
Right.
Because honestly, we had started giving presentations, and I think you two were on the board, but I don't believe that you two were, about whether we wanted to shift to a major, minor. How much did we want to move the big projects through so that the final approval stop was City Commission and not SPRAB?
Right.
And you were only getting away from just only having the appeal route. I mean, there's a lot of conversations to have about that. And before Jay and I spend a year or two, programming it into an intergov system, we need to decide now if there's a streamlined approach we want to adopt first.
I'm amenable to that. And had we not budgeted, didn't we budget $1 million last year for a program, and then ultimately it didn't happen?
It was cut, it was
Correct.
removed, but we also did, and again, this is Jay and I, and all of us have sort of inherited the contract before. We're new to meeting these people, and so we've talked to them and said, okay, let's hit restart. Tell us what you can do for us.
Right.
But I can tell you, I don't mean to speak for you, so certainly, we're both want these people to prove to us they're the right choice, because we have to get this right the first time.
Right.
And we're fortunate we have Jay now because he's actually overseen this in his previous places. He knows how these systems work. So, but it's going to be a long process to build it. It's not like we buy it and plug it in and it works.
Right.
So anyway.
Thank you for your input, both of you. Thank you.
So if I could jump in just for a second also, as we work through certain issues with designing infrastructure, there's information that comes in our permit applications on a daily basis that we should be able to mine out of the system And because of our antiquated methods that we have right now, we can't do that. So every project that comes in comes with an added cost of having to go out and survey finished floor elevations for an entire area rather than being able to just go to our database and pull that information out. I just wanted to add that in, that there is some, it's not all on the expense side of it. There will be some cost savings that we also enjoy from a better system.
Thank you.
I'd like to say I was not aware of the meetings. I don't know why you didn't get around to me. I wasn't even aware, but from day one, was introduced to the back room where all the records are kept of plans, and you can't even, well, let's just say that's a place you don't want to go. I cannot believe that this city does not have automated everything. It's not like we're a little village or a little town. We're a three-time, I keep saying three-time All-American city, and this is what we have, no automation. The developers come, and while they want to develop here, they find it a nightmare because everything is just so laborious to get through our process. It's as if we want to say, come in, but once you get in, you can't get out. You're trapped, and it's going to take you forever to do what you want to do. Automation has been around now for how many years? 50, 60 years at least, and we're still using pen and paper for things that should have been done away with a long time ago. And I am in favor of whatever you need, however you need it. I'm saying it to everybody in public. I support automating our development services, whatever your new name is, for making it not only easy for the city in all aspects, public works, utilities. Let's just make Delray a welcoming place in all aspects. And my second question or comment, Jay, I'm a cyber security person now, and if none of you are, you haven't been watching the news lately, or you weren't affected by the gas lines or the high gas prices. We might not have had the gas lines, but we certainly are seeing the price side effect. And over the weekend, if you're a beef lover, eater, your beef is going to start costing you a little bit more in the next couple of weeks, even months. Working with the Florida League of Cities, I know one of our discussions in the Public Administration Committee was how many cities have been quietly not telling the world that they have been hacked and that they cannot operate because someone has gotten into their system and stopped their operation and will not give it back until they have paid thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, Riviera Beach is the closest municipality that I'm aware of in Palm Beach County, but I apologize, I haven't finished all of the know before, but I don't open things. If I don't know you, don't send me anything. Text me, call me, let me know you're sending me something. I'm very cautious, and I pray that I'm never the one who opens up something by mistake and we've been hijacked. So I'm in favor, although it wasn't high on my list, because I anticipate that we're going to build that new city hall. We're going to have lots of space for lots of things, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to upgrade everything all at once. So the cart before the horse, horse before the cart. We need to do something immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think we're going to Missy.
Yep, we'll go on to Missy.
Well, I think that was a good introduction to your favorite topic,
Good segue.
which is the new construction of a new city hall. I apologize in advance. They gave me just one slide, so I had a lot of information to squeeze on the just one slide. So back in 2018, we did a tabletop assessment. That is different from, we're going to talk about a site needs assessment that we did for the police department later. And also, we did a needs assessment for just renovating the north end of City Hall, which is going to come up later this afternoon when Dwayne talks about City Hall security. So in 2018, we looked at the growth needs for the City Hall area, for the community center, and we initially looked at just City Hall and the community center and keeping that on the site where it is now, utilizing the area where the city attorney's office is. That's the bottom drawing, the bottom schematic there on your slide. And just looking at those two improvements, the new buildings and demolition cost is about $34.5 million in 2018 dollars. The total cost estimate is $60.34 million. And the reason that I want to bring up the difference between just the buildings and demolition and then the total cost is that once you start adding furnishings, fixtures, and design elements, and all of the other things that go along with moving into a new set of buildings, creating a new building, it can almost double the price of the new buildings. And that's always a shock to people who don't work in it every single day. So I wanted to bring that out and make that clear to everyone that the ancillary costs are almost as much as the building cost. So we had a city manager at the time who wanted us to look at the same time we were looking at City Hall, we were also looking at a new police department building. And he wanted us to take a look at taking the front tennis courts from the tennis center that are facing onto Atlantic Avenue and looking at that piece of property to expand the City Hall Center and move the police department onto the same site. I think that we looked at that. There are some deed restrictions on those front tennis courts that we would need to deal with. But that was the city center concept that everybody had heard about. That included improvements to, a new police department building and a separate parking garage for the police department that would satisfy all of their security needs and being able to transport people securely in and out of the police department. A new city hall facility that would include offices for the city attorney. We're not just going to, raise her building and not give her a place to go. You're welcome. And new facilities for the community center, as well as a new parking garage that would accommodate the city hall to take up for the lost parking space that we would have to take for the larger set of buildings. That to combine all of those onto a single piece of property, that cost is around $130 million, and that includes all of the fixtures and fittings and moving and all of that. It also includes a couple of years of having to lease space for the people who are in City Hall now to operate off-site, because if we are going to tear down City Hall and the community center and start again, then we're going to have places for people to work. So that would include that lease space. And then that's the top drawing on your slide there. The middle drawing on the slide was a thought that we could actually do a P3 partnership with private development to help offset some of the cost of this, allow there to be retail space in the area along the front of Atlantic Avenue and a parking garage that would be associated with that, and then make the additional improvements to the community center, city hall, and the parking garage, and still keep all of those things on one site. It doesn't change the cost estimate. The cost estimate is still around 130 million, but it gives us a private partner to help share some of those costs.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see something drawn up on paper. I have several ideas and suggestions, of course, since I sleep and dream and eat and everything around this, because like our automated, out-of-date, soon-to-be out-of-date water treatment plant and our developmental services pen and paper system, I think I don't understand why it's taken this long. Sometimes I guess people just won't even think about something if it's a shoe until it starts to hurt your feet. But once the shoe is no longer has a sole and your toes are sticking out, and every time you turn around you're having to wrap it up in tape again and wrap a building around a building. Dr. Saviak did not believe that our city hall is a building wrapped around a building. And I'm not proud to tell people that, but it's just astonishing to me. And is anyone in the room, is there anyone in the room who can tell me when that happened? Laura? What year was it?
There's a plaque outside that talks about that project. I don't know the year,
And I
though.
keep saying I'm going to read it. but
80s, maybe?
I want to say that it was in the 80s.
In the 80s?
Yeah.
In the
Dad
80s.
designed it.
So if my math is correct, that's a good 40 years. And I don't think the situation is working for us anymore, 40, 50 years. So I'm just astonished. It's time.
Can I add a little something as well?
Who is
Just to
this?
give it, hi, Chief Sims.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm trying.
I'm out of uniform today.
I look at him more when he's in uniform.
Just to give you a little bit more perspective, when the police department, well, apparently we need governmental buildings across the city. But just to give you a different perspective, a more intimate perspective, when the police department was built, we had 48,000 residents in the city of Delray Beach. The building was built for 125 employees. Currently, we are approximately at 70,000 residents. We have approximately 240 employees. And just like all the other governmental buildings experiencing the same things, we're falling apart from the inside out. We're experiencing AC issues, electrical, plumbing, leaks, and most recently, termites.
Oh.
So,
You're getting ahead of me, Chief Sims.
I'm sorry.
You got-
But-
You're
got
two slides next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next slide.
They
I'm
didn't do
waiting
a
on you
preview
to
with
jump in.
Chief.
I
They didn't do a
think I
preview
said
with
my
you.
piece.
No, no.
Missy, may I ask you a question? In two of these options you're taking over, there's 8 tennis courts.
Correct.
Or how do you intend to replace those? Where do you move those to? You don't move them? Okay, I'm a captain of one of the tennis teams over there. There are many teams. They are required 6 courts. If you take out those, you're taking away the tennis teams that play at the tennis center. That's concerning. We have the Lavers site, but typically these courts are busy at least until noon every single day, sometimes 1 o'clock. So I personally would be very concerned about that.
So these are concepts.
Right.
This was just a tabletop exercise. It didn't look at any of the, when we do a needs assessment for a department, we take a look at population growth over the next 20 years.
Right.
How we compare that with staff growth and what staff needs for space and technology may be across that time.
Understood.
This was an idea that was driven primarily by a former city manager who had this as his vision.
Got it.
I would not say that anything that is here
No,
is
right.
anything beyond somebody's dream.
Right, and I
So
think you're
it's
correct,
not a-
there is a deed restriction on all of that area.
Oh, there definitely is. We looked into that.
Right. The tennis courts on the front, those 8 courts?
It's the stadium, it's the stadium, I believe, but I don't believe it's all of the front. And Lynn can probably help me. I don't quite know, but it's not the entire complex that you see there now. We all know we're gonna have to work on everything. We're gonna try to accommodate, I would hope, as many people and activities as we can. I'm all for going up. We have to go up. We are running out of linear type. I don't know that you can have tennis courts on top of tennis courts, but any place that you can do, yeah, it would be challenging. Conceptually, we're not there yet.
Right. These footprints would be 2- and 3-story buildings.
Exactly.
And 3-story parking
And maybe we
garages.
could give an exception and make it 4. My concept, if everybody wants to know where I'm coming from, I am competitive. I sit on the commission of Delray Beach. I compete with Boca and Boynton. Don't know if you've seen Boynton lately. They have
I
a
love Bud's
beautiful,
Chicken. I drive by it all the time.
beautiful, and every time I drive by it, I can't do anything but shake my head. They've got a new police station. They've got a new city hall. They have a new library. We don't need to do that. We've done that already. But it's just, how did they get ahead of us? That's my main question. How did the city of Boynton Beach get ahead of Delray Beach? It's unconscionable.
Can I jump in? I would just like to stay focused. I'm very happy for our neighboring cities and the success that they've had, as I know they're very happy in the success that we've had. So I just want to jump in and piggyback on what Commissioner Casal mentioned. It seems like these plans didn't take into account one major item that's here, which is the tennis facility. And whether that's for our residents to play on the courts, or whether that's for the national tennis tournament that we have, or the dozens and dozens of other youth tournaments, I think that's missing from this, right? We have to take that into consideration. And then secondly, I would like to further explore the idea of the campus. I think Ms. Alvarez and the team kind of brought that forward when utilizing the train station for a city department or multiple city departments. So we're a big city, we're growing, Chief Sims, but our footprint's not that big. So to have more of like a campus approach, we don't need to put everything under one Taj Mahal-like building like maybe some of our neighboring cities have. We can have that campus approach. So I'd like to continue moving in that direction. I look forward to, to where this develops, but just know that those are some of my thoughts, and it continues to be a top priority.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Before you answer, I'd just like to say I thank you for this. At least it's an approach, and it's something on paper. It's a start, and I appreciate everything you've done. It starts the conversation. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say, is that this is where the conversation begins, and this is just a reminder to everyone, these are tabletop concepts. This is just if we could do anything, what could we do? Well, we could do this, or we could do this if we had a private partner, or if we don't want to impact the recreational aspect, we can stay without a presence on Atlantic Avenue and do this third thing. So, and then Sam is even joining in with some additional concepts that he may not necessarily need to keep a community center on this campus. So there are a lot of options available to us as we move forward, if this is what Commission chooses to set as a priority and goal for us in the coming year.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next slide is moving on to Pompe Park. I left this super brief because we just workshopped this the other day. I can tell you that as much as I would love to have built it by now, nothing has changed since our workshop. Except for that we have actually entered into contract with the architectural design firm that's going to come in and work with everyone One of the concerns that keeps popping up is what the facade of the building looks like. I will tell you that from a design perspective, changing the facade on a building is minor. From a construction design, building a new swimming pool, making additional room, fitting everything into the plan that we want to have, those are more major things. So we'll be very soon coming to you with some outreach meetings and plans to sit down and talk about the conceptual design, the way that it was established, and where we want to go.
I'm going to
You want
chime
to
in
add
here.
something,
I don't-
Sam?
All right, Sam Meetop, Parks and Recreation Director. Just wanted to add that in the thought process of this, because I know the pool has been a specific item of discussion, the county actually reached out after the workshop and just wanted some questions and clarity, because any remodeling or revisions or future growth that they would do on their AquaQuest site, which is their pool on Seacrest, if we were to go in an Olympic pool type of direction, they might not, right? So when the county looks at their park planning, they look at a holistic approach of what amenities are there and what are provided to the local governments by the municipalities, then the state parks, and maybe if you even have a federal park, and they try to fill in gaps within the county that way. So what we do here may affect them as their approach, but there wasn't any like clear decisions on our end yet, so they didn't have any direction either. They just want to be looped in.
I do. I understand what he's saying, and thank you. That's really interesting. And so, in light of that, and you all know how I feel about the pool, that I want it to accommodate our high school swim team. Would they contribute any money if we're talking about having a particular size pool in a particular area? Would the county donate any funds to this project?
I can't speak for the county.
No, I
honestly,
know.
but,
I'm just wondering if that's something that might typically happen.
I think the challenge that we would be looking at would be the fact that they already have their pool site.
Correct.
Right? So would they be willing to fund, another pool site a few miles away? I'm not sure.
Okay.
But that, that's an angle that we could talk to them about.
I would appreciate that.
I have a question.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are you telling me that we already have an Olympic pool at the Aquatic Center that Commissioner Cassell is asking to be put at Pompe Park?
We're talking about AquaCrest, which is over on Seacrest.
Yes.
Any future
Next to
renovations
Pomosa.
Next to Pomosa, yes. Any future renovations they would do, they wouldn't want to do any kind of duplicating of services was the approach. So again, without us having definitive answer on that, they don't either. But they wanted to be aware of it and let us know aware that they're waiting for that to be determined.
She's asking
So-
you if that's an Olympic-sized
They
swimming
have it
pool now.
already.
So, folks, if I could just jump in, because we can probably hear you in the room, but this is being recorded, so if you don't mind pulling your mics a little closer when you speak, that might help
I
us.
was having a questioning back and forth with Commissioner Cassell. They have an aquatic pool, but the swim team doesn't want to use it?
They don't use it. They did at one point in time. I'm not sure exactly what transpired. I know that pool is very busy. I'm sorry. I know that pool is very busy. For some reason, they were moved to Boca, and our swim team swims in Boca.
So,
But what he's saying is, if we create a bigger pool, that will affect their consideration for the future.
well, it appears that they've already made it impossible for our swim team, the county schools swim team, that happens to be located in Delray. They've already moved them from something quite local to Boca Raton.
Correct.
So I don't understand why they're saying what we are trying to do to accommodate our swim team is going to affect what they do at their pool when we're not even using it.
Can I just jump in?
Thank you.
It's a goal-setting meeting. We have 2 days. We have a finite amount of time. These
discuss it
are,
with- yeah, we'll
the-
discuss
we
it
are
later.
really
Thank
getting
you.
into the minutia of.
I'll discuss it with her later.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
We'll
Sure.
talk about it later.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's why I keep my mouth shut.
Okay. If we can move to the next slide, here is Chief Sin's favorite project. So in contrast to the tabletop exercise that we did on needs assessment for City Hall, we did an in-depth and a structural assessment of our current police facility. And in looking at that, we looked at what our population growth is going to be out for the next 20 years until, this was also done in 2018. But looking at the population growth, the staff needs that the police department will have in order to meet that population growth, moving all of the police department activities onto one site, taking some of the training facilities away from the Seacrest site, moving it onto the police department site, adding, hang on. I think it's a 326 parking space parking garage for them with secure ingress and egress from their building. We looked at completely replacing this building or at renovating this building. The structural assessment of the police department indicates that the foundation is in good shape and can accommodate adding a third floor to the two-story section of the police department or 2 floors to the one-story section of the police department to give them the space that they would need. I mean, right now they have about just under 40,000 square feet of space. They need to go to around 800 square feet of space. It's a big increase of all of our facilities, and I'm going to give you my opinion right now, which I almost never do. But in my opinion, of all of our facilities that need to be renovated, the police department is at the top. They have, right now, they have 5 officers sharing a desk. There's only 3 shifts, so at some point during the day, there's a couple people sitting at one desk. It's very hard to get your job done that way. So they're very crammed into a very small space. On top of that, the building itself has needs that Chief Sims only skimmed over the top of when he was talking about it before. We have the crime scene hood vents into the hallway instead of into the atmosphere. There are things in the police department that truly need to be fixed. So the cost of replacing that building on that site and renovating that building on that site is about $1.3 million difference. Whether we raise the building and build new, or whether we go for the option to add floors and additional space. Even when we add the floors and additional space on this schematic, you see the kind of, I don't know, it's a brighter green on the screen, but it looks like a minty green here on your handout. But that would have to be built new. Even by adding the floors, that might buy us a couple of years. But eventually, once we get toward the 20-year horizon, we're still going to have to add that additional 3-story building in order to accommodate the needs of the police department.
So I'll just jump in. I just have one quick note, and thank you, Missy, for giving us that opinion, and so that we know to prioritize this project. If you reference the West Atlantic redevelopment plan, one of the important things is the streetscapes along Atlantic. So if there is an opportunity, we have 3 dark blocks at night, really, as far as activity goes. We have the library, we have the courthouse, and then we have the police station. I think there's an opportunity for, a linear park there in front of the police station. The courthouse kind of has one. It's actually kind of a nice park that we don't really activate or think about often. And of course, the library has some opportunities with that arcade. So if that can just be taken into consideration when planning out the police station, the future of our police station.
The land that the police department sits on actually was another piece of donated land, and there is a deed restriction that requires us to keep green space and a park on a piece of the property. That would be a good place to put it.
Great.
Thank you, Missy. I might need to exchange the party of the city hall as number one to make it number two, but I just said a city complex. There are all kinds of ways that we can do this, and we shouldn't be forced to keep the footprint of what we have now. There are opportunities, and I think we're smart enough to come up with something for everyone, Commissioner Casal.
And I think when we get to Dwayne's security discussion this afternoon, I might have a Band-Aid that we could talk about for making City Hall more livable until such time as we can do something big there too.
But one other thing, also was discussed, the parking garage, one or two of those floors can also be used for public parking as well. So that would increase the parking in the area.
Thinking outside the box. I don't think we do enough of that. Thank you.
Okay, so the next slide concerns our roadways, our repair and replacement of the roadways. We get on a regular basis, mostly the electeds, get a lot of requests for us to, and we understand that you get a lot of pressure on this front to pave my road, look at my road first, that sort of thing. I want to go back to a statement that was made earlier today by Dr. Saviak about how maintenance is an ongoing issue and it's something that you pay attention to. You don't build things once and then ignore it for the next 40 years, except we did that in Delray Beach. We had a decade of excellence. We built everything brand new. It was squeaky clean, shiny, and beautiful, and we walked away from it. So we are behind the 8 ball trying to catch up on our roadway maintenance. In order to address those needs, we have created a pavement preservation program where we have taken a pavement condition index of every square inch of city roadway throughout the city. And we have come up with a way to prioritize how we repair the roads in the city limits. It's not intuitive, and that's the part that I wanted to touch base with you today. Intuitively, you would think that we would go after the worst roads and fix them, and then go after the next worst roads and fix them, and start at the low numbers on the PCI, the Pavement Condition Index, and work our way to the highest numbers. And that's not exactly the best way to maintain our roadways. What we did were look at those mid-level roadways that are about to fall below the line into requiring a complete reconstruction, which means that there are cracks in the road, but it has not actually inundated the base beneath that roadway yet. So for the last 2 years, we're going into our 3rd year of this program. For the last 2 years, what we've asked you for is $2.5 million to work on a process we call mill and resurface. That's where we bring a machine in, it shaves the asphalt off the top of the base, it crunches it up, it adds new asphalt, and we come right behind that machine and lay down new roadway. So what that has done is take those roads that were in danger of falling into the full reconstruction category and brought them up to an excellent level. So we've done the mill and resurface a couple of years. This year we came back and we put preservation sealer on top of the roads that we milled and resurfaced 2 years ago. We'll be coming in next year and sealing those others. This sealer does a couple of things. It adds another 10 years to the lifespan of that roadway, and it also helps with greenhouse gases. It's the particular sealer that we use, it reduces the urban heat off of the roadway and helps with some of the production of the greenhouse gases. That's to the best we can do in the asphalt world for sustainability. But it also gives us an opportunity to catch up as we're repairing the roads each year. It gives us an opportunity to get ahead of the decay that we've been experiencing, so that in maybe 10 years or 15 years, we can get onto a regular program of mill and resurface and preservation of the roadways, so that when we come in, we're not just doing 3 or 4 blocks in a neighborhood. Instead, we'll come in and do a neighborhood. That sort of thing, so that it gets on a regular, and then we have a maintenance. All of that being said, this coming year is the year where we're going to start looking at doing some of the worst streets. So we'll be looking at some of that full depth reconstruction, and our ask is going to go up from $2.5 million to about $4.5 million, and stay there for maybe the next 8 years while we catch up on this process.
Thank you very much. That's very enlightening. Now I understand why certain streets that I say I feel like I'm falling off the edge of it, it's not the one that's getting the attention. I didn't bother to ask you. I just said, well, it's on the list. It's on the list. I'd like to give a little insight into the condition of our town, city rather, as not necessarily downtown. And Dr. Saviak, I consider downtown from I-95 all the way to the ocean. So once you get off of I-95, you're in downtown. Uptown, I guess, would be on the west side of I-95. But you said 40 years, we did great, but I think we failed, and you failed to remind us that there were certain communities that received nothing, and
Yes, ma'am.
did not get roads, streets improvements, did not get sidewalks. So we're 40 plus or 50, 60 years plus from when they first laid the streets back in the 50s. And again, here we are, All America City, with this kind of a condition. But we're going to work on it now.
Well, honestly, before I even got here, a prior commission had laid out 3 neighborhoods that they wanted to see a complete revitalization in each of those neighborhoods done. And they gave us a priority listing on how to do it. The Osceola Park neighborhood that we'll be finishing up very soon was the first. So we are also getting ready to, we've done some preliminary work in the Northwest neighborhood, but we are getting ready to contract with a new firm to come in and complete that design of the Northwest neighborhood. That will be the Northwest neighborhood complete revitalization. And the third community that was prioritized by that past commission was the Southwest neighborhood, which has some of the more troubled spots in the Southwest neighborhood. So rather than wait because we're not even ready to begin on design for that neighborhood for a couple of years. Rather than wait for that, we've prioritized some of the worst streets in the Southwest neighborhood, and that project is ongoing right now and is just getting completed. And also, I know that y'all have noticed that we're out there replacing a lot of sidewalk in the Southwest neighborhood. I want you to know that that is being done completely with city funding, and that is part of our Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan. These were all ADA accessibility issues that were outlined by the city, and we have also got a 10-year program to replace all of those broken, non-existent sidewalk gaps in those communities over the next 10 years or so, and that's also going to be an annual ask from my department, is about $1 million to work on completing that transition plan.
So before we move on to the next slide, I just wanted to acknowledge our mayor has joined us. Good morning, Mayor.
guys. Appreciate it.
We're at the point, we're basically just going one by one on
Mhm.
some of those items that came from the interviews and the surveys.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next topic of conversation is about the golf course where we're sitting right now today. The comment was made earlier that the golf course needs some love. That is absolutely true, and we're giving it. So one of the things that I want to highlight on this particular project, when we initially brought this project to you, it had several components. We were looking at replacing the utility pipes that lead from the well fields that are here on the golf course to the water treatment plant. Even though they're not in terrible condition, we are still going to do that because we don't want to come back in a few years and have to tear the golf course up again. But also in that program, when we brought it to you earlier, was some rehabilitation of the actual wells themselves. And Hassan, you can jump in anytime you want to, but in evaluating that, it's best to give him permission because he's going to do it anyway. But in evaluating those well fields, staff feels like that the utilities department feels like they can accomplish that in-house. So the cost of this project will be coming down. And that is something that under Hassan's leadership in the utilities department, you'll find in several of the major projects that we had brought to you before, Tropic Isles, some of the others that, as he's had an opportunity with his engineering staff that he has on board now to take a look at those types of issues, the priorities in his department have shifted. And we're all being flexible in making sure that he has those funds that he needs to put forward to a new water treatment plant, and that we're doing the best stewarding of the public dollars that we can by accommodating those repairs when they need to be accommodated, and not necessarily just because we have the ground open replacing pipes. Yes.
Can you give us just a generalized figure as to what it was that we were looking at as a figure and what it's come down to so we can understand?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's I can't do that off the top of my head.
Will there be any delays because we're utilizing our resources versus outside?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
We are at 60% design currently. We're looking at that. We're doing a lot of upgrades to the grounds, not necessarily any to this building, but to the grounds. We'll be getting new bathrooms, new maintenance facility, new ability for deliveries to be made. The bridges are going to be rehabilitated, and all of the golf course layout. We are looking at construction beginning in the spring of 2022. So the golf course will be shut down in the spring of 2022 if we can't figure a way to keep 9 holes open at a time, which is certainly something that we're trying to do. And we expect for construction to be complete in the summer of 2023. So
And-
it'll be just longer than a year.
Okay, and are we, there was at one point in time, we were talking about taking a section off of Atlantic and possibly selling and doing a P3, or possibly putting, we talked about a lot of different things, and we also talked about the design itself being something that would be really off the chart. So I mean, I kind of feel like we were talking about that, and then now we're moving forward with, I don't even know what. So I guess my question is that, what are we moving forward with, and did any of those other things come into play?
To my knowledge, I wasn't really involved in the P3 conversations about taking property off of Atlantic. That is not on the table. We're looking at renovating because we have the two, and Sam can really speak to this a lot more intelligently than I can, but because we have the two different famous golf course designers, which is a really unique and attractive situation for this golf course here. We are looking at enhancing those two designs, and as far as I know, we are not looking at realigning any of the holes, as the that area right along Atlantic, that is actually part of, I want to say it's the 5th green. See, I'm not that bad.
You've been in a lot of meetings.
Here.
I think what you're referring to is the two famous architects, the primary one being a Donald Ross. So that designation is something that's been very heavily repeated and influenced, that they want to keep that Donald Ross, and that's the front 9. That's over on the Atlantic side. The interesting part of that is part of the concept flips the numbers, but not the design, right? So what is the front becomes the back. So if, that's why the numbers, it depends on which slide you're looking at in the future. But yeah, that's one of the main elements of the entire project, was to keep that Donald Ross designation. And there's a specific style and architecture to those holes. And without completely gutting it and rebuilding a Donald Ross course, that's the only way to do so on that front side.
We had a person who actually designed, I believe it was Osprey Point, give us a actual design in order to be able to actually section off and still remain in that Donald Ross. And Beth Daniels, who is a, LBG, she's a ladies champion golfer, was also part of that conversation. So I'm just wondering, did that ever continue? One of the things that worries me is that we're going to, we'll fix it up, but it's not going to really have the pizzazz that we could possibly do. And that was one of the elements that was being brought in. Like, you could go to Delray's golf course in the center of the city, and feel like you're completely somewhere else if we did what they were recommending, some recommendations. And I just don't know why we wouldn't at least consider, these are professionals and the top of the top, of consultants that were coming here because they live here and doing it for nothing. And so my question is that, I feel like there might be a little bit of a gap, and I'd like to have that explored before the final, if my colleagues would, consider that, just because we have a great opportunity here, and I would hate to miss that. And if it has to do with cost, there was a way to be able to do it with taking just a certain amount off of the front end, selling that and paying for it, so that the taxpayers didn't get the big brunt of that tax bill. It made sense to me. So anyway, I want to bring that, because I don't know how much, everybody's changed. So there's a moving forward, but maybe not with all the information.
Yeah, I think there's two parts that I'd like to add to that. One is, I'm not sure I've ever seen, I've heard of this, but I don't think I've ever actually seen that plan.
I've seen it.
But the other side, and you touched on it, is what I was going to add to this conversation as well, is regardless of what direction we need to go, I think it's important in a goal setting to discuss the fact that we will have to increase the budget on an annual basis to maintain this, because that's been one of the current challenges, is that the budget in 2017, they did a report that it was well underfunded back then. And if you consider that for a decade plus of maintenance on an annual basis, you get to where we're at today. And it kind of overlays everything else we're talking about, whether it's buildings or streets. It's all the same discussion that we're all dealing with. But that is an important element that you bring up, is that we will have to make sure that when we do this renovation and come back, that our budget on an annual basis matches a brand-new golf course, whatever that design happens to be.
And I was going to say, and one more thing, and this is where a potential P3 may be the better choice for us as a potential in going forward, at least discussing it, because again, we're asking the taxpayers, the majority of which, the overwhelming majority of which, don't use our golf course. And when we're asking them to increase their tax dollars to supporting it, and trust me, it brings in people. It is very important for us, as other cities are losing golf courses. If we can make ours that much more incredible, it will draw people in, and it will help us to become that much better of a city, that we have everything. But if we're not able to maintain it, as you're saying, because our tax dollars are being squeezed in other directions that are needs, not wants, I think that this is that great opportunity to really look at this from a different perspective. And I'll open it up. I know that sounds like one of my colleagues wants to speak, so. Yes.
Yeah, I want to second that. And Mayor, I think you would agree, before you got here, every item we've discussed has been hurry up and let's go.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know.
And this is the first one we're hitting where I think we need to slow down a little bit. I know there's some things that we're gonna get done, especially when it comes to, our water, but we have a golf course on Atlantic Avenue. I think there's an opportunity to maybe the entrance shouldn't be, cutting through a community. Maybe there's a P3 opportunity where they build the new clubhouse because they got to build their office building on Atlantic. I really think we need to slow down, and this could be an incredible project for Delray Beach, if we do just take a pause maybe and
I know
explore
that
some of
that
these
will
other
not make
options.
people happy in the golf course community because we have been promising this forever, but I don't want to get it wrong after all that promising and have something that we, underdeliver, so
'Cause I think you would agree, some of the municipalities have had great success is their golf courses are known for their non-golf facilities as much as their golf facilities for weddings, or even some of them housing restaurants, like in Pompano. What is it, Giuseppe's or just Sleppi's, or I can't remember. But it's like one of the top restaurants in Pompano, and you go there and you look over the the golf course. So I think we really have an opportunity with this facility. So this would be the first item that I would say let's just take a moment and maybe have a separate workshop or charrette.
Charrette.
Can I ask one other question about?
May I perk up?
Real quick, just where is the underground facilities? Is it all through the golf course? Is it only in one section of the golf course? Can you isolate it down? Is it on the perimeter? Because I would never want you to slow down on that part of it. That aspect of it is gonna have to be done no matter what, but if it's ripping up the entire golf course, then we've gotta have the plan to go forward with the golf course. But if it's on the perimeter, maybe we continue down that path.
The water main that delivers the raw water from
Yeah.
the well field goes through all of the golf course facilities. But that being said, the pipe itself is in pretty good condition. The only reason that we're replacing it is because we don't want to take the golf course out of operation several times. So if we delay this project, that will not be a consideration.
Gotcha, okay. Vice Mayor.
I heard, I'll let you.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. One of the reasons to replace this, as Missy mentioned, by the way, thank you so much, Missy, and Public Works for taking the lead on that project, was while we're doing the golf course, let's do the pipeline. The pipeline is a HDPE pipe, is a thick plastic pipe, which is much more flexible and durable than a regular cast iron pipe. We have seen the failure of that cast iron pipe for the past couple months. We have been discussing back and forth as far as the need for that pipe to be replaced.
Gotcha.
But I do agree, whenever the golf course renovation is going in operation, we can do that in conjunction. But there is not a definite need. I mean, the pipe, emergency happens, and we have to deal with it.
Sure.
But it's not the situation right now. We got to go ahead and replace it.
Understood. Thank you very much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'd just like to say, someone said something about a workshop. I'm there. This is one of the gems that I think we are so close to losing. Mayor, you have some excellent ideas. Unfortunately, we may be restrained by trying to keep our designation. So we'll have to be very careful with that.
Absolutely.
Being one of our premier historic preservationists in the city, we don't want to someone say, well, it used to be a Donald Ross and whoever the other designer was. We want to have a big sign saying Donald Ross, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that this place, it can be whatever we want to make it, wherever we want to make it. We need to make it something other than what it is. I think we'll all agree to that. So we need a workshop.
If I could jump in, if we have a little bit of consensus here that we might want to pivot on this project, we do have the design underway. So we will need to kind of, at least internally, Missy, myself, Sam, Hassan, probably would need to get together quickly and figure out, you know, what that's going to look like moving forward, and whether that means we stop our current design now or somehow reimagine it with a P3 concept or something. So it changes things a little bit for us but anyhow, we can make that happen, but we may need to figure that out very quickly so as to not expend any more money on the current design. So just me doing the reality check for the team here.
Do you
So,
have
I think
consensus
maybe-
in order to be able to slow it down and in order to be able to get it done?
How much of a slowdown?
Well, I mean, she's saying that not spending any more money on the design until there is a consensus that this is the route that is wanted to be
Right.
taken.
I
'Cause
understand
I
that.
think that what we need to do is get you guys that design that Beth Daniels
That
brought
would be very
before
helpful.
us. And I thought the city had it because, obviously, but I can ring her, and there was a definite design in order to be able to accommodate the Donald Ross designation and really do something amazing. The person who designed it unfortunately has passed, but he did Osprey Point, and that's a pretty amazing, golf course if anybody's been on it.
Okay.
Feel like you're somewhere else. in the
Okay,
woods.
so if you could get that to us, that'd be great, and then we'll have to convene internally to kind of figure out how to not expend any more money and maybe
Okay.
change,
Will do.
workshop.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our Parks and Recreation page for, this item was Parks and Repair and Replacement. At first, my assumption is it was kind of an overlap with Pompe Park, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about maybe some of our other parks, since that park had its own workshop and its own slide today. But a lot of the things that we deal with when we come to this topic citywide is everything you hear about with Pompe Park. It's the same thing we've heard about today, in that it is a lot of infrastructure that has been past its useful life, that we are trying to replace, that we're trying to fix. And we've actually, I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about some of the things that we've done. We have 18 playgrounds in the city. A lot of people don't even realize we have that many. Most people are surprised we have more than 18 parks, right? They know the main ones, but 18 playgrounds, and all, if not maybe one or two, were in pretty rough shape just a few years ago, almost all of them. And we've replaced Veterans Park. We've put a fitness center playground out at Barwick. The Miracle League playground's been replaced. Orchard View. Merritt has the new obstacle course. Curry Commons is being built now. We are in the process of repairing Maycheck and adding shade this summer. We are also about to break ground at a replacement for Anchor Park and looking to do so for Barwick Park by the end of the year as well. So it's, as you can see, that's a lot of playgrounds in a very short period of time. In the Parks and Recreation world, you tend to replace a playground every 18 to 20 years. So as you have them throughout your playground system, they'd all be spaced out. You'd almost never replace this many playgrounds this fast. And we have another large one that we'd be looking to replace next year at Leon Weeks as well. So typically we would do a playground, in my experience, every 5 to 6 years. You might do one, and then be another 5 or 6 years before another one would be replaced. So we're doing almost 10 in about 3 to 4 years. So you can see the progress that we make, and we are really excited about that. And it's not just replacing a playground. And it's one of the things in our world you get excited about. If it's to not just add a playground, it's an add a playground that makes sense for that park and for that activity, right? Location to pavilions. What type of amenities are there? Does it add revenue so that you can have birthday parties there? And what kind of shade do you have? What type of parking and bathrooms do you have? It's something we're really concerned with, and that you look at it from a citywide. Are you adding playground pieces for children 2 to 5? Are you adding elements for 5 to 12, which are your two different sizes? If you go to a playground, you're now going to see it, and you're going to be like, I never even thought about it this way, but there's typically 2 different sections, right? A big section and the little section, and that's why, is you don't even want the kids necessarily mixing for safety elements. So we're really excited about it. If you haven't seen the new Curry Commons one, you'll get to the next item is, everybody wants the family playground with the slides and the climbing apparatuses, but we're also trying to add really cool elements that you don't have everywhere and just repeating them at different parks with different colors. You'll see the one at Curry's Commons. It's the first of its kind in the entire southeast. It's an interior climber. You actually climb inside of it. You'll see the picture on your left. It's almost 2.5 stories tall that you climb in now, and the tube slides down. I mentioned Merritt Park with the obstacle course, and it's just bringing in different elements that make the kids and families excited. Some of you have been around with the Pompe Park discussion long enough to create destination. And that's the new concept in Parks Playground, is create a destination that makes families want to get in their car and go. 15, 20 years ago, the thought process was to put a playground within walking distance. It hasn't been effective. You end up with very small playgrounds all over your communities that only the local 5 to 10 families actually use. So now it's shifting to this destination type of feel where you got to give them something that's cooler than they can put in their backyard, and that draws them out to the playground and makes them want to go to the park.
Challenge.
So, on that regard, I'd like to say thank you. You guys have been super supportive of that, and as long as everybody is on the same page, we'll continue working away at that. The next item we listed was improved maintenance. It's been one of our bigger challenges, to be honest with you, is the overall maintenance of our parks. First thing you see was old playgrounds, so automatically you would think it's not being maintained. But landscaping, the sidewalks, the amenities themselves, it's been a challenge for us. Those of you, most of them know, we also do the right-of-ways and medians in town. And our maintenance staff is really stepping up, and they are. And you'll see it park by park as we move in. One of the things we're trying to take advantage of, when we do one of these playgrounds, the entire park gets the facelift, right? It's not, if we're under construction and we're bringing in staff to do these projects, so you'll see when you go to an Orchard View Park that got a playground, it's looking better than ever. And one of our challenges, quite frankly, is that, like I said, it's not just Pompe that's been struggling for a long time, because that's easy to refocus your energies and fix one park. But when all 50-plus parks have been struggling, where do you start? And you can't let a couple fall away to help fix others. So it's been this collective improvement, but also then project by project, park by park, going in and trying to pick it up. So if there's any ask in this, it's that we look to continue to add parks maintenance personnel. We're good on our supervision level, but it's frontline staff, the people, many of which live in Delray or grew up in Delray, that we need. They're extra hands on mowing, trimming, maintaining, repairing, those little things. But saying that, they've done a really good job, right? We haven't added staff to that division in almost 10 years. So we're maintaining more parks. Like I said, when we build and increase, it's more maintenance. And they've done a good job of absorbing that and really improving, but that's where one of our challenges is. And I don't think anyone's surprised by that. You guys see it when you're out in the parks as well. And then we switch to, it's not just playgrounds, right? It's park amenities that we look at. And we've had a lot of success with that as well. I can think of the ADP, Atlantic Dunes Park Pavilion that was rebuilt. The tennis center, many don't know, the tennis center main court hadn't been rebuilt in almost 25 years. It was dangerous. We were able to get that rebuilt and redone. And there's been a lot of improvements to the tennis center, specifically the stadium. All of the tennis courts that have been rebuilt. The finger pier that we're about to replace at Knowles Park has been in rough shape and been neglected for a long, long time. We're about to replace that. And then one of the things that I'm most proud of that I think we can talk about is the amount of resources and commitment and support we've gotten for the cemetery has made a huge, huge impact. We were able to hire a cemetery manager 3 years ago, and it's made a big difference. Cemetery's been around for 100-plus years, and we never had someone actually in charge of maintaining it and operating it. And all of this is help from Public Works. It's help from the legal team. It's help from community improvement. We put up a new fence. If you've seen the new fence, it's
Beautiful.
A dramatic change. The new plotted areas. At one point last year, we were down to 4 plots left in the entire cemetery. And Missy's teams literally raced to open up 1,700 new spots for us. And we'll be looking at a mausoleum in the future. I know you guys have heard of that. So there's a lot of excitement on my end, a lot of progress being made, but there's a lot of work to be done too, as you know. and again, we talked about Pompe before, so I don't want to neglect that, but it's the same discussion that I think everybody's having today, and that is, it seems like there was a period of time that things just weren't looked at, and we're all of us here are so new, even 6 years is still new for so many of us, and that we're really trying to pick that ball up and run and get us all on the same page, so that was my brief update on Parks and Recreation, some of our parks repairs, so I'm open to any questions.
I have a question. How do we compare to our sister cities like Boca or Boynton with the amount of staff that they have on their parks team versus ours?
You know, one of the challenges in just in that comparison is there's layers to that discussion. Some cities put their park maintenance in public works. Some cities put their roadway maintenance in public works.
Gotcha.
Or other options, right? It's really hard to do an apples to apples comparison, but
Gotcha.
yeah, our numbers would be behind on a manpower per acre type of discussion.
Okay, thank you for that.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mayor, because last year, I guess it was over a year ago, when I shadowed each department, there was some very obvious deficiencies. One of them being technology in someone's department, which we've already discussed, and then realizing how big the Parks and Recreation Department is. I mean, it's our parks, it's our open spaces, it's our beaches, it's our medians. Yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on, this department, and it doesn't surprise me that we don't necessarily have the manpower, and we might not be hitting expectations when it comes to maintenance. So for me, what's been very eye-opening the last few years has been our restrooms. And that partly has to do with the fact that I have 2 young daughters, and that changes your perspective on restrooms. And in the fact that I'm involved in many tournaments where people are coming from other cities into our town, and at Seacrest Park, I have to go, yeah, skip that restroom and walk to the next restroom for a better experience. And it's it's obviously embarrassing, and I know you know that, and we are here to point out opportunities. So that would be like an initiative for me, is like, Delray Beach has the best public restrooms. If someone said that, oh my gosh, I would be, oh, thank you so much. So as far as maintenance goes, because I tell you, I go to Barwick, once a week, and I don't know if my schedule just always seems to line up, but as far as the grounds being taken care of and the grass being cut and the trees being trimmed, they don't miss it.
They know.
I mean, they do not miss it over there. But I think there's some opportunity with the restroom facilities. And then, you're right, in regards to all our small, pocket parks, man, you guys have been knocking, I mean, it feels like every month I have a new park to go to with my kids, which is really cool. The Ninja course is amazing. I see crowds out there all the time. But there is an opportunity when it comes to our, what's the word you used? The
Designation.
Destination, yeah, the destination parks. We talked about, Pompe. I think there's opportunity at Catherine Strong and, providing a field possibly for the Delray Rocks. Old School Square, veterans, and then swim and tennis, I think, are some key areas that we need some investment in. But the biggest opportunity for me is the blank slate at Lake Ida and Congress. There's an incredible, amount of families right there, and they don't have, a really great facility that they can walk to or even closely drive to. And to do something that I think complements Pompe, which is going to be right around the corner. It really is. It's right around the corner. Something that really complements that. And Sam, you've thrown out some really great ideas in regards to a really large pavilion for events, or a really great water park splash pad for there. I think it's time that we finally activate that corner for our community.
Yeah, if I could, I love that concept. If we look to a little bit further south, Deerfield Beach used this type of activity to revitalize a community. And I know there's always been a discussion about what can we do on Congress to kind of revitalize the Congress corridor a little bit. So one of the things we looked at is that corner being a parks property, that a splash pad with a large, what we would call a corporate pavilion, which just means it's big enough that it can host about 150 people, and it has its own bathrooms. That's in what we would consider a corporate pavilion. You'll see them at many of your state or county parks where you can have a big event. But yeah, we looked at that as, that model worked in another community with a big splash pad, family type oriented family. facility where people could come and rent a corporate pavilion, bring their kids there on a regular basis, where it's not a pool, right? So if we're going to build a pool at Pompe Park, do we do something different? And there's a lot of families that don't go swimming. There's a lot of families that want to cool off and bring their kids. And these splash pads are huge successes. If you ever bring the kids to the zoos, Palm Beach Zoo now has one at the entrance in the big circle, and they're cool. You can shut them off. You can put up tents and do anything. So they use that in the downtown area in Deerfield Beach. So we talked about that as, could that work on that corner? So it's definitely an option.
If I could, I think that we've got so many parks right now to add, and then also to have another one. I mean, I'm not even so sure that that's where I'd want to see. I mean, I know it's a very busy corner, so I feel like it might not be what we would expect, maybe if we were setting it back further or something. But again, I think that we're cash strapped with trying to get money into maintaining just the parks that we have, so until we're there. But on that same note, Boca does it different. They have they have an absolute, separate taxing district for their parks. And I think that might make an absolute difference for us looking at it. And I know I don't want to be bringing up taxes because I'm going to get crucified, but hey, I'm not running again, so I'm going to bring it up. Note to everybody. But anyway, so there is a potential for maybe really elevating what we're doing. We have a tremendous number of parks. We have a lot of need, and maybe that's what we start thinking about, taking a look at what they're doing well, because when I go to their parks, they're top notch. I mean, they are trimmed and they are edged and everything is perfect, and you go in the bathroom and you feel okay. So somehow we're missing a little bit of that, and I think it is the money. But maybe we make it so that it's not about the money, and then there's a separate even group that makes those decisions outside of a commission that is specific to that. It's an idea, it's something that in goal setting, you bring these things up because you see how somebody else is doing, has created the wheel a little bit better than ours that's clunking along. So just a thought.
I'd like to.
Oh, may I just piggyback on what Commissioner Boylston said about the bathrooms? Because I too have a child, and I basically tell her to hold it. That's it. And the tennis center is a good example. I think I said it in the very beginning when we talked about our goals. We get so many visitors that come into the city just to use that facility. And when you go into the building, and I ask everybody to do it, and go into the bathroom, it's unfortunate because it doesn't really represent us well. So I'm amenable to looking at our bathrooms and
I am
upgrading.
too, 100%.
Thank you.
I would make that a goal.
I see a workshop. I'd like to commend you. You shocked me. You said you didn't think anybody would be shocked by it. 10 years and you haven't increased the personnel who maintain our parks? That's unheard of. That's almost an impossibility. And you've done such marvelous things with the cemetery. Unfortunately, COVID caused probably an increased attention to our cemeteries because there was no ceremonial going to the churches or the funeral homes. A lot of families just went straight from the hospital to the cemetery. And unfortunately, it wasn't a very pretty place. And less than 2 years ago, and I think a lot of us don't want to remember, but there was internal fighting amongst our residents as to where is my loved one? You've misplaced my mom, and whatever you did, I thank you for it because nobody is talking about that now, and I hope they don't do it just because I mentioned it. Whatever it was, you must have resolved it peaceably, and I thank you for that, if nothing else, because that's not a good feeling or a reputation that any city wants to have. So I'm taking this opportunity to say thank you, and thank you for this beautiful new park. Is it age limited?
No, there's a 2 to 5 and a 5 to 12.
I'm
but,
going down those slides.
I was going to say, I've been requested for having some adult hours on the slide.
I've asked for adult hours, but nothing yet. But
It's not quite done. We should be done within a month.
So I'm a little bit out of, I wanted to slide. I wanted to climb the wall too. If I could get up 2 feet and come down, that would be my exercise for the day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to chime in just for a moment, because this is a conversation Sam and I had a little while ago, and Commissioner Casal, you and I had actually, I think, a week ago. And when we began this morning, a few commissioners asked, what is it that you can do for us? And so I'm going to walk right through that door at this moment. But based on what you just heard from Sam, and as you know, last year, particularly when we had to really squeeze budgets really tough, one of the things that I don't even think I realized at that moment going through that budget process was, when we said to departments, implement a 7.25% cost savings across the board. I know, guys, don't look at me like that. So one of the things to consider that I didn't consider until obviously after, that 7.5% for a department like Parks, because they have a huge chunk of their budget is contractual commitments, right? That can't change. So Sam could not take 7.25% off of those contractual commitments. So once you put a large chunk of those contracts aside, including the golf courses, including tennis and all of that, that 7.5% when it hit his operational side really was not 7.5%. Maybe it was more like 12 or 13%. So, in thinking back on that impact that it's had to his operations, to the park's operations, it's just one of those things. I really wanted to have that conversation with the commission as we head into budgeting to really understand that when we're doing those things, we really need to consider things a little bit differently, particularly in departments that have those contractual obligations that can't change.
Absolutely.
So just something to throw out for
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm next. I don't know who put me behind Sam, but that's a hard act to follow right there. If
You can
you'll
do
look,
it.
if you will look at the main priorities that we have here on the paper, the ones on the slides didn't make it because I was actually out of town visiting my daughter who graduated from law school. So I had to catch up with Dr. Saviak and do it at the teleconference with him, so that's why I didn't make it there. But the three things I'm going to talk about is fire stations, emergency operations center, and fire training facility. So with the fire stations, it's the same thing we have all day here today. It's just they were built in 29 years ago. Specifically, we're talking about fire stations 111, 112, fire station 115, and also Ocean Rescue Headquarters on Anchor Park. They're either going to need to be replaced soon or have major renovations to them. They're over 29 years old, have constant needs of repair and maintenance. All three of the fire stations, and I believe Ocean Rescue has the original roof. It's been patched several times. They still leak. None of them meet the Miami-Dade Category Risk 4, which is basically a Category 5 hurricane. Some of them, especially 112 and I believe 115, when it was designed with those hurricane shutters inside the wall, so you have to crank them down, and none of those work. So we have to remove those firefighters out of those stations. So even if we bring the trucks out of the station, the firefighters out of the station is still vulnerable for a hurricane that could destroy the station because the shutters don't work. Poorly designed back in the 1992, I believe, but that's what we have. And just some other things. Stations do not meet gender-neutral modern living spaces. Back in the early 1990s, we didn't have a lot of females in the fire service. Today, we're very diverse and we have a lot of females, but our bunk rooms and our bathrooms are not set up that way. So we may have one bathroom for one female, and we may have 4 females at the station. I have over 20 females in the fire department. So a lot of these stations will have to be reworked, or if we renovate them, have to be reworked to take that into consideration. Station 111 headquarters, we're out of space there. There's no room for any growth. We've actually had the same amount of chief officers since the early 1980s. That hasn't changed. We've increased our operational staff, but we haven't increased anybody in the command staff. Station 115 is our special ops station. It's in dire need of storage. We have a storage unit on scene that's falling apart, on scene, sorry, at the station. On the property that's falling apart. We can't even use it. Our current stations were not built for more than 30 years without renovations, and there's been no real major renovations to any of the stations. I believe the only one that's had anything major done to it, I think the kitchen was redone in Station 111, but nothing major in over 30 years. And back when they made these stations, they built these stations, at the time, we had a staffing of only 2 people on an engine and 2 people on rescue. 2 of the stations only had engines in them, didn't even have rescues. So they weren't built for the future. Like now we have, you know, an engine and rescue at each station. There's 3 people in each unit. Special Ops Station has 3 units there. Headquarters has got, you know, 5 units there. It just wasn't built for future growth, and now we're stuck here with very limited room. And so we need to take that into consideration. Ocean Rescue Headquarters, same situation there. It's just an old headquarters, an old building. They've outgrown that station. They're unable to store their personal watercraft, their wave runners that they use inside the garage. There's a garage there specifically for that. It has to stay outside. And just the building itself is just pretty rough because of the salty environment they have there. Before I move on to the EOC, is there any questions on any of the fire stations?
Why can't they store inside the garage?
Because they have other equipment there. They have the surfboards, try to bring in the 4Runners inside. So the 4Runners are the ones that they use. They're just.
On the beaches?
Yes, ma'am. And they have a new cart, side by side, it's a mule.
So it's a space issue?
It's a space issue.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's not it's just a design space issue. It's not a, you know, falling down around them
Right.
issue.
Got it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You did not, and I don't, unless I missed it, we have an occurrence happening with our contractual agreement with Highland Beach. Is this not something that we should potentially be addressing now? Or did I miss, it's in here in,
For the station in Highland Beach?
well,
The station in Highland Beach is owned by Highland Beach. The only thing that's ours in that station is maybe the equipment and some of the furniture, the firefighters. We currently we own the apparatus. We lease it to Highland Beach, but in the contract, it says that, you know, if we separate from them, then they will either take over the payments if the lessor will agree to that, or if the lessor doesn't agree to that, they will purchase the remaining part of the lease from us.
not that this is the place and time, but I would like to have seen something at least mentioned, because it appears that they are going to go their separate ways, and we're going to have to look for some kind of support for our citizens on that end. And I'm now looking at a contest between the police department and the fire departments, stations rather, and City Hall. So I think it's a tie, 3-way tie. I just don't know. We've got to come up with something.
No, ma'am, I think we're all in a
Needs are out
difficult
there.
situation here that we face. I mean, this can's been kicked down the road for so many years with every facility in the city, not just police, fire, you know, or City Hall even. It's a huge monster in the room that we just have to attack. And like I tell my kids when they do their homework, you know, they say it's too much, and I say, well, how do you eat an elephant? You know, one bite at a time. So we're just going to look at this and stop kicking the can down the road.
Thank you.
And just somebody's got to take a bite,
Chief
right?
Tommy, do you?
Big bites.
Which station is on Linton? Is that the 115? Or is that the one?
Station, it's 113.
113, so that's not one of the ones that's on here, that's because it's going to be done, it's already in the process?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So we have the beach, the main one, and 115 is the one out on Germantown?
Germantown, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I just wanted to kind of get
And
the
then
idea of which ones these are.
And the one on Barwick, it needs some work too, but it's not nearly as
Yeah,
bad
but
as
that's a newer station.
It is. I think 2008 or 9 is when it was built.
Yeah.
It might need to be hardened to a Cat 5, but other than that, it's in relatively good shape.
Okay, thanks.
May I ask, thank you, you didn't include any kind of monetary estimate in here? Is that just because it's so much? I mean, so much,
no,
a lot
ma'am.
of different components?
No, that's a good question, and I have it in my notes and I'd forgotten to mention it. We're putting into next year's budget a needs assessment and structural assessment for those stations.
Okay.
So the following year, we should have a better idea. Like Chief Sims is way ahead of me
Right.
on that. He already had his needs assessment and
It's
structural
only got
assessments
one,
done. so-
one.
Yeah.
You got 6.
So, but we will have some harder numbers for you next year.
Thank you.
Maybe because his outdated building might be a little bit more than yours. Not that they're not race tit for
No,
tat,
not at all.
but it's just, again, we've just overlooked and kicked the can down the road. I didn't want to say that, but we're good at that. And I think I mentioned it when I said we plan, we strategize, we make a list, and we kick it down the road. And for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, the city of Delray has done that. And I think we're getting ready to pay the piper for having done that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I agree. So the next thing, if there's no other questions on the fire stations, the next thing is the Emergency Operations Center. As you know, at one time, this was going to be part of the Station 113 project. Since then, we've pivoted on that, and we're looking for a permanent standalone EOC. We don't have one right now. As you know, we're using a temporary location. But not having one, not having a permanent EOC that's set up and ready to go presents a risk to our ability to respond and to recover from a disaster. So even though we're at the temporary location, it's kind of undesirable, just the location that it's in. We're on the first floor. I don't want to say where it's at, but everybody in the room knows where it's at. As you know, our greatest hazards that we face are hurricanes. We're a coastal city. That's going to be our biggest challenge. Also, you know, another hazard is train derailment. We have two rails that run through our city, both of them with extremely bad stuff that they take north and south. And, you know, train derailment would be something that we would definitely have to stand up to EOC in. Also, civil disturbance is another hazard that we could face too, very similar. We would set up an EOC with that. It would probably take a while to get everybody together, but we would need to do that as well. We need to have a dedicated Cat 5 EOC, that's secured facility, one that can be set up, it's set up already for immediate activation for those no notice type of events. No notice would be a civil disturbance, a train derailment. As you guys know, we get a good 5 or 6 days notice, maybe even longer for hurricanes. So it gives us plenty of time to, you know, get the city ready, get our homes ready, and we can come in and set up the EOC pretty quickly. But having a dedicated standalone facility ready to go for those non-notice type of events is what we're looking for. The EOC that we're looking at is very similar to the one that was going to be considered for the Station 113. It's going to need office space, conference rooms, a huge operations room, bunk rooms, showers, kitchen facility. It's going to need an area for us to deal with the media, so a public information area. We're going to need a quiet room. A quiet room is simply when you've done a 12-hour shift in an EOC and it's loud and it's noisy and you just can't go from that kind of environment to your bunk and go to sleep. You need some time to kind of like just relax where it's quiet. So that's why we recommend having a quiet room. We also need to make sure that this facility is hardened against unauthorized entry. We need to have strong communication connectivity. We need to have, IT, cable, satellite, cell phone connectivity, ham radio, and we need to have backup power redundancies. So we're looking at a facility around 10 to 12,000 square feet that's going to house at least 25 people per shift. When you have a hurricane, we're going to have more than 50 people in that building during a hurricane. And that's it for that. Is there any questions on the EOC?
I have some.
Okay.
First of all, to create just a facility for this, I don't think that's going to happen. And if you wonder why the can gets kicked down the road, it's because of the pile-on of every single department needing so much. I mean, just what we're being looked at right here for just the fire department would be enough for the entire city for probably years. So we've got to figure out a way to be able to do this, accomplish what needs to be accomplished without it being too much of a burden on, I think, the city as a whole. Otherwise, it's never going to get done. That's the reality of the situation. That's why it hasn't been done yet. So from my perspective, it would be an easier way to bite and chew this if, in fact, it was space that was utilized in several different ways. In other words, we're looking at this, and the way it's been written out is it's its own facility. If we can find a way to be able to incorporate this into the city, let's say, hall, and we create the space where the bunk room becomes the area that we are now staged as our chamber. And we have, we put some facilities in there for cooking and for, showering and bathing, and we have a hardened structure. That's a much easier sell than a separate facility that we're gonna have to find and create this. So an emergency facility, I mean, how often do we use them? I mean, sometimes never in a year. And so to create this is a very expensive endeavor, and to never even use it in a year and possibly, so you need to find a way to be able to incorporate this into something else where we can use it the other 99% of the time that it's not being used as an EOC, with still having what you need. So that would be my recommendation to you and the city manager and us, to give us that opportunity to be able to support it versus segmenting it off and having us try to find a space to do this. And again, it's that hard dollar that's being stretched in every single one of these, departments. I want you to be successful, and I want to be able to deliver this.
No,
That's what I'm trying to say.
I totally understand where you're coming from, and I totally agree with you. There's a lot of ways we can do this. We can tie to several other different projects. The very next thing I'm going to talk about is the training facility. I mean, there's a piece of property that we've identified on Congress Avenue that has very potential for a lot of things, for training facilities, for EOC, for city logistics, for us to store different things like the Christmas tree. We have vehicle storage issues that we need that we could use. So we are looking for other opportunities, and I agree, having just a standalone someplace is it's not wasteful of money, but I can see it could be, tied in with some other projects or two. But the other thing with an EOC, though, the location's important, right? So having it at City Hall is not a desirable location, to be honest with you. Having it where our temporary state EOC is not very desirable because of the location. Having it someplace on Congress Avenue might be a little bit better, or even further west for that matter. So we have to consider the location as well.
True.
That's a main thing, too.
Right. Okay, very good.
Mayor, if you didn't mind, I'll just quickly say, now, my dream was to have an entire floor, perhaps semi-underground, at the City Hall. Maybe not, now that you've said it's not desirable. We're close to the coast if it's coming, but hurricanes and other things come from the west also.
No, they do.
2004. So it's strategic as to how you design it, place it, et cetera. And I think the important thing is that it's strategically located, that we can have other activities going on. Why create a building just for an EOC when we have our City Hall? As the mayor said, we might be able to incorporate things. But I see a place where we have a separate place for showering and relief, off shift, et cetera, bedding, a place for families of the employees who are working the EOC, because there's nothing more nerve-wracking than to think that your family is outside of this facility in need, and you're at a location where you can't get to them. So another workshop.
Any other questions?
No, I was just going to jump in and say that I agree with the mayor. If we're going to be building a new police station, a new city hall, and then whatever's happening with the county land and the county project on Congress, I feel like there's a way that we can fit in all these needs.
Yeah, I do too. I'm not dead set on a standalone facility, but I would require it to be to where we can activate it immediately, that it's not something that we have to bring IT and spend 4 hours trying to set up an EOC. We need to be able to walk in, turn on the lights, and open up the computer and start working.
That's right.
Because eventually we'll have a no-notice type of event. So we all think of hurricanes where we have that 5-7 day window where we can get prepared, but we have a train derailment, and that's,
Yeah.
I'd also about to say the COVID. That would have been nice. I don't know how you managed to tie in with the meetings with the county. That would have been a great place to gather together and listen in. Again, not to take time to talk about it, but daily meetings. I mean, that was a 24 24-hour type situation, 12 months of having to constantly be in contact with the county and the state. And so it's not just for hurricanes. There are other incidents that you would just immediately want to activate the center.
Right, and just so you know, we did have a level 2 activation with COVID at the very beginning, and we were talking with the state and county and everything all the way through that, and then we actually still kept it a level 2, but we didn't keep it open. We kind of worked from our offices and listened to the county calls and stuff like that, just sitting at our offices, so. All right, so the last thing fire has is a fire training facility. We've talked about this a few years ago. We were real close to purchasing something a few years ago, and again, we pivoted and went in a different direction. But ISO, which we are a Class 1, fire department, requires 18 hours of facility training per firefighter per year. And a facility is what they're talking about, which means a facility with a minimum of 2 acres, the 3-story drill tower, and some place to do live fire training, some type of building. Right now, for us to get that, we go to Coral Springs, or we'll go to Palm Beach County to do that facility training. Having a facility for us to train would help us with our NFPA compliance for not only just onboarding our firefighters through recruit school, but their continued ongoing training throughout their career. It will allow us to have adequate hands-on training that would enhance our safety and efficiency. Because we do special ops here and hazmat here in the city, our technical rescue, vehicle extrication training, hazmat training would be done at this facility. Right now, we kind of do it just at Station 5 or Station 115. We need an adequate place for driver training and aerial and engine operations. Having a training facility within the city would reduce our cost of renting a live fire time at other training facilities, would also allow us to control our own scheduling. Right now, we're kind of at the will of whoever training facility we're going to. It will also increase our unit availability with our units. It'll improve the quality of training. The training overall just improves our morale, our fitness, our safety, and reduces injuries, and it also increases our level of service to the community. And again, I think along with this and talking about an EOC and talking about logistics and other things, I think this training facility is just another thing like the EOC that can be kind of combined into like a mixed-use area, where you may have the EOC, the training facility, storage, logistics, things along those nature, all in one facility or on one kind of campus or complex.
I have a question, sir. I'm very concerned that a training facility means smoke and fire and other hazards. I don't know that the city has any place. We tried to do something at 10th and the railroad track. The facility was, the acreage was contaminated, and we walked away from that. But at the same time, we are at a training facility, you're going to have to produce smoke and everything else that's a biohazard for the environment. Can you tell me, other than that spot, has there been another place that you've located that's not going to affect the neighborhood?
Like I said earlier, we've identified a spot on Congress Avenue. It's just north of Linton, just north of where Presidente is now. It's a 7-acre spot. It has a building on it that's 29,000 square feet. This would be an ideal space to do a police fire training, a public safety training facility, EOC, city logistics where we can do a warehouse area there. We have a lot of stuff just kind of sitting out in the weather there at City Garage. I think we pay a lot of money for storing the Christmas tree, but we'd have plenty of land there to have a building that we can store the Christmas tree. So that's one area that we located. We do have somebody looking at that for us. I think next week we're going to meet with the owners to kind of get an idea of what, if they're willing to sell or not, and kind of tour the facility. So we have identified that, but again, we're just very preliminary. We're just kind of, inquiring about it. So there's nothing.
It's good to hear. I just think everywhere I look, there's just residents, neighborhoods. And
that would be a good
we want
location.
something way out in the county if we could negotiate with them to do something, but then, of course, they don't want to have us have our own facility because we're taking away from theirs, so it's going to have to be internal. Thank you.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Joe, how are you doing on time? Are you kind of?
So good.
Okay, great.
It's the lunch break, and maybe I'm overly optimistic, but maybe move through the next 3 capital projects before lunch.
Yep, perfect.
So we expect lunch around 11:45 to be ready. So about 15 minutes. Let's see what we can do. Oh, it's Hassan. Hassan's
Oh,
quick.
Good morning again. That means I have half an hour for this slide?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay, great, thank you. Wastewater treatment. City of Delray Beach and Boynton Beach, we are the.
Mr. Hassan,
I'm
before you
sorry.
start, did you see where that was on the major findings of capital projects, wastewater treatment? It's number 10.
Number 10?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're aware of that.
Oh, thank you. Well, this project to me is going to be the second one as far as the priority when it comes for the city.
I know. Go right ahead, I'm sorry.
It was number
I just
3
had
on
to
the,
add that.
it was number 3 on the staff list.
I
though,
know,
so
and it's so far
We're
down on
gonna
this one.
probably talk some of
exactly.
that through later today or tomorrow, so.
So funny. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay, no, thank you. And now I forgot what I was going to say. But as I was stating, City of Delray Beach and Boynton Beach, we are the co-owner and co-operator of the South Central Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility. Myself, the Director of Utilities for Boynton Beach, and the manager at Wastewater Treatment Plant, we are the 3 that basically review the operating protocol and also all the requirement that that treatment plant has to meet. The treatment plant was built in 1979, and for nearly, if I'm not mistaken, for about 30 years, it used ocean outfall for the treated effluent to be pumped into the ocean. So in 2008, ocean outfall statute was adopted by the legislature. It says that by 2025, you have to reduce the amount of treated effluent that you put into the ocean by 60%. So where that 60% is going to go? You know, the wastewater has been treated and has to go somewhere. So the only alternative they gave to the utilities or operating a committee for the treatment facilities, what they have to use reuse water for as an alternate for ocean outfall. So as part of that, City of Delray and City of Boynton, they have to reuse 60% of their base wastewater flow that was back in 2009 as a reuse. So what does this mean? It means that City of Delray Beach has to have, I put in this little graph right there, I think, 4.7 million gallons per day, and City of Boynton by 5.7 million gallons per day by 2025. So right now, the City of Delray actually is doing okay. We are at 2.7 on a good day. And Boynton, like us, they have their own challenges also to meet those numbers. We have 4 years to meet that 4.7. So we have to at least come up with the nearly 2 million gallons per day more reuse sites. Serving the residential communities, really, yes, they have provided some help as far as the amount of the reuse, but we need to look into the major users. We have to look at the alternatives that can give us the greatest value for the money that we are going to spend. Within the city area, I have been looking. Yes, we have the couple reclaimed water project that ongoing, but those are actually going to bring not a noticeable amount of reclaimed water reuse water to be utilized. Currently, there is a project that is going to bring reuse water to the city hall and around that. But in general, we're talking about maybe 70, 80,000 gallons per day. That's nothing compared to 2 million gallons that we have to use. So I have been discussing this with Ms. Alvarez in a great extent. She has been a great help to me, and we have to just widen our horizon. If we have to go to different municipalities, we have to see who has a golf course that does not use reclaimed water for irrigation. We have to maximize our city also, make sure that every golf course, every park, median, large users that we have. As part of the bullet that I have here, we're going to make sure that the properties that they were supposed to use reclaimed water and they're not using, they use reclaimed, they must use reclaimed water. The properties who are using potable water right now for drinking water, and we have seen it since March of this year, because of lack of rain, every single day, from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., 6 p.m., it just somebody flipped the switch. Our demand goes extremely high. And everybody blames it on a water plant. And I get calls, Hassan, what are you doing at 5 a.m., you know? What are you guys doing with your treatment plant? We're not doing nothing. We're just treating the same water and putting them out to our customers. But when everybody starts using, and especially large properties, that they use this potable water, because our rates are, we're gonna get into the rate study later, because when they use 50,000 gallons of water and basically pay nothing for it, it makes it very attractive to them to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So we really have to start looking into those very, very closely to see how we can do that. As far as the wastewater treatment plant, I have been pushing for the second deep injection well, and I want to really appreciate the board, because you know, all of you are the board member also for that treatment facility that we meet quarterly. And I cannot thank enough all the support that you've given me to push that deep injection well. It was an ongoing discussion for a couple years, and with your support, and when the other municipalities saw how aggressive we are in implementing that, they basically came online. And thank you, and Ms. Alvarez, for
So
that.
it'll be both of us doing the deep well injection?
Yes, ma'am.
both
Yes, ma'am.
pointing
Actually,
us.
yes. It was a plan for the second deep well always, because the wastewater has to go somewhere.
Right.
If you don't put them in a deep well and reuse, there are days that you cannot use reuse because it's going to be raining. We haven't seen that lately. But so that has, as a backup, that has to go somewhere. And that deep injection well that they have is only one deep injection well that has a capacity of nearly 19 million gallons per day. But last year, if you recall, during the September, October, we had those very high day flows. 30 million gallons a day was going to that wastewater plant. So guess where the additional flow was going to? Ocean outfall.
Outflow.
And the unfortunate part is ocean outfall is within the city of Delray Beach. So they all think city of Delray Beach is the one that who put the treated effluent into the ocean outfall. We are not. We are just 40% contributor to that wastewater.
We're dumping
So it's very important for us to get that one done. That is hopefully on a schedule, as most of you aware. And I did include that in our CIP, our portion of that, which is, there was already money allocated for that.
Right.
So there are some additional money needed because the cost has gone up.
Right.
And we really do not want to kick the can down in the road anymore, because it's going to be an environmental issue
Right.
and a cost.
And might I add to that as well, is that we currently have a permit which is going to expire.
Expires
Correct.
October of 2022,
Right.
which I actually requested personally, that we have to go for re-permitting. That gives us another 2-3 years, because with the deep injection well is a little bit different. When you start drilling the deep well, if your permit expires, you cannot just go ask for the extension.
Mm-hmm.
You have to cease our operation. You cannot do 1 day of work until you get the whole permitting done. So
I'd like to interrupt you, Hassan. I know this is the love of your life. Besides potable water, this is your second love. Because I'd like to thank you for coming on board in less than 1 year. There has been such a dramatic change in how the city of Boynton Beach and Delray Beach have worked to support our wastewater. Very few people understood, and I didn't until I became a commissioner, that I'm also the commissioner on the wastewater board. And it was an eye-opener in more ways than one. We have mandates from the state. Help me, is it 2040?
2025.
2025.
Yes, ma'am.
We must shut off that pipe. So when it rains, we're just going to have overflow into our canals, wherever it's going to go. So we've had some changes, and I'd like to also commend my fellow commissioner, Julie Cassell, who has been the chairwoman of the board and faithfully has pushed with all of the support of the commissioners who have come to our meetings. This is a most important aspect of our city. Although we only, you said, do 40%, we're 100% because I believe Boynton may be doing whatever they do, and they're growing by leaps and bounds, and no way close to, we are no way close to what they've done with adding new buildings and citizenry and occupants, in my opinion. They're building 6- and 7-story buildings. I don't know if they're occupied, but if they are, then that means we're getting additional inflow. So we are in a tight position. I would hope that all of the commissioners and the mayor will support this deep water well, and to also commend our plant manager along with your work in helping push this along, because the EPA does not play. They will fine us, and we will be in deep trouble in less than, 4 years.
Yes, ma'am. In a successful utilities mission statement, if you read, it says best water, best service, best environmental stewardship. So we are trying to do a best service at this time. We get in there, best water, with your help, we're gonna have that within 3-4 years. And best environmental stewardship that's what we will be doing. So I'm pretty sure in the near future, everybody would look into the city of Delray Beach and to say, that's how it's done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have another question for you. Have we, I know that we supply Gulfstream with their water.
Yes.
Potable water.
Yes.
Do they use our pipes to, no. So just Highland Beach for the wastewater. Where does their wastewater go?
They have we get a wastewater, if I'm mistaken, from the Gulf Stream too. I have to check on that.
Okay, so we're getting
Yes.
Gulfstream and
Yes.
we're also getting Highland Beach.
Right.
You know, I think that we should also make sure that we explore, and I think you and I had this conversation,
Yes.
the golf courses and any facilities in those two communities that could take on some
Yes.
of this, this treated water in order to be able to lessen that impact for us. And if I understand it correctly, we're increasing the amount of wastewater we're having to treat because we're getting more and more people moving in and we're building more homes, and that it's increasing, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's going to mean that we're going to have that much more to have to
Yes.
manage.
Yes, ma'am. We specifically looked at one of those 2 towns that you mentioned. I don't want to say the name, but
I already did. I'm not running, so I'm okay.
but yes, we have noticed that there are very large properties
Yes.
along the beach that they utilize just.
That could
this-
be an impact,
Yes,
correct?
that is an impact, especially during the dry season.
Yes.
Because during the dry season, the interesting part is our aquifers, the levels are low. Because it's not raining, they're not getting recharged. At the same time, we are pulling so much out potable water just to irrigate our lawn. So we have to get to a point that we have other alternative for our customer to use, but also don't make it so affordable that rest of the community will be hurting. And as I mentioned to you, pressure. Because yes, we put 45 to 50 PSI pressure from treatment plant, but by time it gets 3-4 miles away from the treatment plant, and everybody's using their irrigation system, they experience lower pressure. So it's not something that we are doing different at the water plant.
No, it's just that it's the demand
Is
that's
the demand, and a demand that could be addressed and corrected. It's not like a real drinking water that we tell people do not drink. We actually revised our website yesterday, and I sent the same thing to one of those towns. I said, please put this in your website, so people won't be using that much water for, but hopefully they listen.
We might consider, and this is just something that they do, obviously, when we have these down periods of time for having the water available, and like you said,
Yes.
as you see our retention ponds lower,
Oh,
it's the same
can
things
see it.
happening underground.
You can see it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So maybe having sprinklers, at certain days on certain addresses, if it's even and odd, or however you would do it, that I think might be important, even if we're feeling that. And I'm getting a lot of calls, by the way, of pressure calls. It's not one area. It seems to be just, it's sporadic across the city.
Right.
So there are people that are really feeling, and they're saying it's down 50% in these buildings, maybe high rises, and could be other issues. But regardless, everybody's experiencing something a little bit different. And I think that we're going to have to get smarter about how we're allowing this to come out, whether it's to regulate that sprinklers at certain days, that type of thing.
We are working on that. Madam Mayor is coming to board hopefully within the next couple of months. The ordinance, irrigation ordinance, that actually it gives the city teeth to enforce that.
Yeah.
That is a 3 days watering for different addresses at different days, and no watering on Friday.
Yeah, I have one other question. We have two entities that seem to be out a distance from this situation, because we only require that Boynton and Delray Beach participate in this. They have no idea, and I don't understand how that's been allowed to go on for this length of time.
Are you talking about the cities that we?
I'm talking about the cities that we service. They don't understand. And until we get the leadership involved and maybe get their participation and the need, they're impacting us. We don't communicate as to how they are. They don't even understand it. If we were to tell them, yes, we have a water waste treatment plant, they've probably never been there. So I think it's time that we invite them into the room.
They do.
And to the table.
Yes, ma'am. As part of that, we have to extend our infrastructure to get the reclaimed water, let's say, to one of those two towns. And they have to commit to extend it within their city limit. So it has to be a joint municipalities project. It's going to be great things for everyone to do it. And if you use one golf course, it's just like you are giving a water to almost 3,000 homes. And you know how difficult it is 3,000 homes water or 4,000. You're dealing with the cross connection, you're dealing with the individual meter.
Hookups.
Golf course, you got 1 meter, 1 pipeline, and you're done with it.
Wow.
I think it's past time that they be invited to the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just ask one more question?
Yes, ma'am.
It comes to mind, because in our last meeting, we had discussed looking to make a combined effort to look for grant money or some
Yes.
legislative funding. Is that in process? Are we doing that, we and Boynton collectively?
For the reclaimed water, we are. For the reclaimed water, one great thing is South Florida Water Management District always co-share the cost of the reclaimed water. We have been getting, city has been getting for many years. Last year we received, this year you just approved the agreement for $600,000 for the grant. And if we show in our application that we have a large users, it actually moves that project to the top of the list.
Okay, great.
So South Florida definitely is there, and hopefully we need to do it within the next couple of years so we can get it done before 2025, and time goes fast.
Yes. And you didn't include the monetary value. I know you said there was some funding, and I know it indicated it is going to cost more than what we anticipated because we are, we're
For
doing
deep
it.
injection well?
Correct.
Yes, deep injection well originally, I think,
Oh, my apologies, that was me.
I'm gonna finish
so
soon.
sorry.
Oh.
I apologize, everybody. Holy moly.
I thought that was a hint.
Whoa, wake up.
I thought that was Missy. She usually
This
hints
is
me,
important,
Hassan, be
everyone.
quiet.
Yeah.
Yes, there was if I'm not mistaken, $5 million budget that the city both city had already allocated that.
Right.
But the cost has gone up. The cost had gone up to over $8 million. But as you are aware, we are in the process of hopefully getting a much more attractive price on that.
Right.
Both City of Boynton and us have included that in our CIP for the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
There should be also some participation on those municipalities that are, enjoying our facilities, okay? Without our facility, I don't know what they would be doing. So that has to be a cost, not unlike what Chief Tommy just went through.
Right.
It has to be a cost that has to be passed on as well. The citizens of this town should not be bearing the brunt of all of this cost when we have two other municipalities that are also participating. So I don't know how that works, but that's something that somebody needs to look into and figure out so that that is, equally shared or rightfully shared, I should say.
That was going to be my question, Mayor. It just occurred to me, are they getting a free ride?
I don't know.
I don't know
We
either.
charge them for the water that we
Yes.
provide
Well, I mean,
to
we
them.
charge our
They're-
citizens for the water too. So what I'm
Correct.
saying is that we're charging our citizens for these upgrades. Are they getting their piece of the action of the upgrades that we're also putting into?
I think only Boynton and.
Yeah,
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying.
they're responsible for their infrastructure past their connection with the city. So that is where our responsibility ends, okay? So they pay us for the water that we provide, and they have to assume any cost for their infrastructure once we, at the interconnect. So what I'm hearing, though, is that when we approach these cities, which we've actually opened the line of communication with at least one of them recently, when we sit down to speak with them and we start talking about bringing them on reclaimed, one of the things that we want to talk to them about is clearly the same types of benefits that our community gets. Number one, they're going to obviously save money by not using potable water, and it will establish that rate structure that would help that. And then number two, we can jointly seek those grants from the South Florida Water Management District for that infrastructure improvements that could help offset whatever they need to do.
But I think what she's saying is, if we're spending $8 million for the deep injection well, and we're splitting that 50-50 with Boynton, it seems as though they should be contributing some money as well. While it's on our property,
Well,
it's their-
let me just say this. Let me just ask this question because I think that this might clear it up. Are they paying the same water rates as we are, our citizens? Okay, then there is a problem, because they're not they're not adding to our tax base that pays for these upgrades. So in other words, they should be paying a higher rate of water, or they should be helping us with the facilities. It's one or the
So,
other.
but we're paying for that not from general fund, not from property taxes,
I don't understand what that
correct?
statement was.
It's not a tax base necessarily an issue. These are fee-based, right? So we spread these projects, if you will, across our customer base through those fees. So what
Okay.
we really want to talk about is going to be later today, is
Okay.
those utility rate fees.
Okay, and so what you're basically saying is that our utility rate fees takes into consideration all upgrades, and so everybody is taking.
It should, because that is that is the
That's a
funding
different story, and
mechanism
if
for
that's the
that
case-
enterprise fund,
Listen,
absolutely.
if that's the case, then great, but if it's a separate, $9 million that we're actually taking out of our operating funds
No.
in order to be able to.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right,
No.
that's all I want to make sure of, is that it's a fair situation.
Great, no, that's a great conversation, yeah.
But those issues could be addressed when the time comes for renew the agreement.
Sure.
Because we have 20 years agreement with them, then at that time, we can say, all right,
Absolutely.
that what we committed 30 years ago is gone up.
That's true. Great.
Thank you.
Yes. The only, just real quick question, if we're looking for areas to utilize reclaimed water, have we ever explored connecting to the school district sites?
There are, one of the project that is going on right now, actually, it does provide reclaimed water to the school site. It's just a green area. Wherever there is a field, is a sport fields or whatever, that's what we're looking. We're looking at the cemeteries.
Right.
We look at anything that we can, there is green. But it has to be, let's say, worth it for us to spend $1 million to go and hopefully get rid of 100,000 gallon. You know, is.
So it might not make
prohibitive.
sense for maybe like a Spady, but might make sense for, you know, a village or Atlantic. Yeah, Atlantic's a great
Yes.
example,
We
especially
do-
because it's right across the street.
We do provide it to
Yes.
Atlantic High
Oh,
School
yeah.
already.
I know, they need to use more of it.
They have an internal issue
Right.
they have to fix to get
Okay.
more of it.
Okay, thank
May
you.
May I have a clarification? You said we're dispersing the waste, reclaimed water, to the playgrounds? Did I hear that correctly?
To the parks.
To the parks?
To the parks, correct. But the reclaimed water is, again, reclaimed water is allowed for the park, for the soccer field, for, you know.
Because they don't want you to,
I'm sorry?
they don't want you to, of course, drink it.
No,
Or you
no,
could-
it should,
But if
actually,
the children are playing on the fields, it's safe.
yes, ma'am, the reclaimed water, the time of the irrigation typically is the time that nobody is there. We irrigate them from, I don't know, Sam can tell you, Sam has been using reclaimed water in few of his park and he's doing a great job. But usually you irrigate them when nobody's there.
I'm just, if it's there, then how long is it before it's safe? That's my only concern. I don't want anyone to ever come back and say, my child did something. Played on this field, you had the reclaimed water.
It's a regular practice as well. Many municipalities do that on their own.
It's safe.
Practice and baseball practice.
Every major site that we put for reclaimed water, we actually have to get a permit from the Florida Department of Health. And the regulations that we have to do an inspection once a year, make sure the water is not on at certain time, make sure even when it's on, it's not spraying over the water fountain that the kids go drink water. Make sure it's not the area, but
I
just
just
one
wanted
thing.
the public to know this, because they're gonna hear us discussing it. You said at the parks.
Yes.
Next thing they're thinking, it's not safe for my child to use
Yeah.
the facility because of that. And you've explained it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is now a good time to let everyone know that the food is ready? Huh? Should we go ahead and eat and then we'll continue?
Can I ask only one small favor? Maybe we restart at 12:45 instead of 1, and still get there before 45 minutes for lunch.
Okay, I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
just to make sure, because some of the discussions have been a little more extensive.
12:45?
You know, at 5 o'clock is a hard break, I want to make sure that every issue gets full.
You were there.
Okay, 12:45, everybody back and ready.